I stared at the text message from my father, my hands trembling as I read it again. Alvera, now that you've got the promotion, here's how it works. 70% of your salary goes to your sister's college fund, 30% to me for the house. That's simple. After years of working double shifts, earning my MBA at night, and sacrificing everything for this moment, my father had just claimed my entire future. The promotion I'd fought for wasn't mine anymore. It was theirs. The message shouldn't have surprised me, but somehow it did. Maybe because I'd spent so many years telling myself things would be different once I succeeded. That once I proved myself, my father would finally see me as more than just a resource to be managed. I was the eldest daughter, the one who'd always been expected to excel. From the moment I could hold a pencil, my father made it clear that my achievements weren't just for me, they were for the family. Every A on my report card, every academic award, every scholarship offer was met with the same response. Good, this will help us all. My sister Madison came along when I was 10 years old. While I was memorizing multiplication tables and competing in spelling bees, she was learning to crawl. The age gap meant we lived in different worlds, but I loved her fiercely from the start. She had our mother's gentle spirit and artistic soul, always drawing on any surface she could find. Our mother died when Madison was 5 and I was 15. Cancer took her slowly, painfully, leaving behind 2 daughters and a father who didn't know how to boil water, much less raise children. I stepped into the void without being asked. Someone had to pack Madison's lunches, braid her hair, help with homework, attend parent-teacher conferences when our father was working his construction job. "You're so mature for your age," teachers would tell me. What they didn't understand was that I didn't have a choice. Maturity wasn't an accomplishment, it was survival. The sacrifices started small. I turned down the debate team because practices conflicted with picking up Madison from school. I skipped the junior prom to watch her when she had the flu. But the sacrifices grew larger when acceptance letters came from universities across the country, each with generous scholarship offers. My father sat me down for what he called a family meeting. "We need you here," he'd said simply. "Madison needs stability. I can't do this alone." So I enrolled at the local state university, commuting from home to save money. I worked 20 hours a week at a grocery store, then 30 at an office job once I proved I could handle it. My classmates talked about spring break trips and study abroad programs, while I calculated whether we could afford new shoes for Madison. "Once you're stable, we'll all benefit," my father would say whenever I looked exhausted. "Family takes care of family." I believed him. Through 4 years of undergraduate study through the MBA program I completed at night, while working full-time through every missed opportunity and postponed dream, I held on to that promise. Family takes care of family. The promotion to marketing director had been my light at the end of the tunnel. 3 rounds of interviews, a presentation to the board, competing against candidates with more experience. But I'd earned it through sheer determination and the ability to work harder than anyone else, skills I'd honed through years of juggling responsibilities. My new salary would be $90,000 a year. For the first time in my life, I'd calculated what I could do with that money. A small apartment of my own, a reliable car to replace the 15-year-old sedan held together by prayer and duct tape. Maybe even a vacation, something I'd only seen in the Instagram posts of former classmates. But now, staring at my father's text, those dreams crumbled. 70% for Madison, 30% for him, 0% for the person who'd earned it. I thought about all the nights I'd studied by the light of my phone to avoid waking Madison, all the professional clothes I'd bought at thrift stores, carefully mending tears and hiding stains, all the networking events I'd missed because I couldn't afford the gas to drive across town. My phone buzzed again. Another text from my father. "I know this seems like a lot, but remember everything we've done for you. The roof over your head, the food you ate, the clothes you wore. It's time to pay it forward." Pay it forward, as if the last 13 years hadn't been payment enough. I set the phone down and walked to my bedroom window. Outside, life continued as normal. Neighbors walking dogs, kids riding bicycles, families living their separate lives without the weight of obligation crushing their dreams. I wondered what that felt like. The truly shocking part came when I opened my laptop and checked my bank statement. For years, I'd been meticulous about my finances, tracking every penny, but they're staring back at me were withdrawals I didn't recognize. Small amounts at first, then larger ones, all from the checking account where my father was listed as a co-signer from when I was 18. My hand shook as I scrolled through the transactions. Gas station charges from across town, restaurant bills from places I'd never been. And then the pattern emerged. Casino ATM withdrawals, sports betting sites, online poker payments. My father, the man demanding 90% of my salary for family obligations, had been gambling with the money I'd saved. The room spun as I pieced together the truth. His construction job that supposedly barely covered the mortgage, his claims that he was saving for Madison's future, the guilt trips about family sacrifice. All lies built on the foundation of my labor. I pulled up my email and searched for the promotion letter from HR. There it was, official confirmation of my new position and salary. Marketing director. Start date in 2 weeks. The future I'd worked toward finally within reach. My father had found out about the promotion through Madison, who'd mentioned it excitedly at dinner. Within hours, he'd crafted his plan to claim what I'd earned. Not asking, not discussing, simply declaring his ownership of my success. The sound of footsteps on the stairs pulled me from my thoughts. Madison appeared in my doorway, her face troubled. At 18, she still had the same gentle spirit that reminded me of our mother. But there was something else in her expression now. Fear. "Did you get Dad's text?" she asked quietly. I nodded, not trusting my voice. "I didn't know he was going to do that," she said quickly. "When he asked about your promotion, I thought he was just proud of you. I didn't know." "It's not your fault," I managed to say, because it wasn't. Madison was as much a victim in this as I was, just in different ways. She stepped into the room and sat on my bed, pulling her knees to her chest, like she used to do as a child when thunderstorms scared her. "What are you going to do?" For the first time in my life, I didn't have an answer ready. The responsible eldest daughter, the one who always had a plan, who always figured it out, was completely lost. "I don't know," I admitted. We sat in silence as the weight of 13 years pressed down on my shoulders. Every sacrifice, every missed opportunity, every dream deferred had led to this moment. My father waiting for my compliance. Madison caught between us, and me finally understanding that family taking care of family had only ever meant one thing in our house, me taking care of everyone else. The sound of my father's truck pulling into the driveway broke the silence. Madison tensed, and I saw my own anxiety reflected in her eyes. "He's going to want an answer," she whispered. I thought about the 10-year-old girl who'd held her baby sister for the first time, promising to always protect her. I thought about the 15-year-old who'd become a mother overnight. I thought about the 28-year-old who just discovered her father had been stealing from her while demanding everything she had left to give. "Then he's going to get one," I said, standing up. The front door slammed shut downstairs, and my father's voice boomed through the house. "Alvera Madison family meeting in 5 minutes. Madison looked at me with wide eyes. "Are you going to agree to his plan?" I thought about the message still glowing on my phone screen. 70%, 30%, 100% of my life belonging to everyone but me. "No," I said quietly, "I'm not." The shock of what I discovered in those bank statements was still raw, but beneath it, something else was building. Not anger exactly, but something cleaner, clearer. The understanding that the prison I'd lived in had been built from my own compliance bar by bar, year by year. Alvera," my father called again, impatience creeping into his voice. I helped Madison to her feet and squeezed her hand. Whatever happens next, remember that this isn't about you. This is between Dad and me. She nodded, but I could see the worry etched in every line of her face. We walked downstairs together toward a confrontation 13 years in the making. The dining room table was set like a business meeting. My father sat at the head, papers spread before him, a calculator prominently displayed. To his right sat my Aunt Martha, his older sister, who lived 40 minutes away, but somehow always appeared for family dramas. Uncle Carl, Martha's husband, fidgeted with his coffee cup, avoiding eye contact with everyone. "Good you're here," my father said as Madison and I entered. "Take a seat. We have important family business to discuss." The formality of it all might have been laughable if it weren't so calculating. This wasn't a discussion. It was a presentation designed to corner me into compliance. I sat directly across from my father while Madison took the chair to my left. She hunched into herself, trying to become invisible. "Now then," my father began shuffling his papers importantly. "As you know, Alvera has received a significant promotion. This is wonderful news for our family." "Your family," Aunt Martha corrected with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Let's not forget, we're all connected here." The emphasis on all wasn't subtle. I glanced at Uncle Carl, who continued his intense study of his coffee cup. "Right," my father continued. "With Alvara's new salary of $90,000 per year, we can finally get this family back on track. I've worked out the numbers." He slid a paper across the table toward me. It was a detailed breakdown, typed and printed like an official document. Monthly salary after taxes. 70% highlighted in yellow for Madison's college fund. 30% in green for household expenses. A big red zero where my portion should have been. "As you can see," he said, his voice taking on the tone of a patient teacher, "this arrangement ensures Madison gets the education she deserves, and the household remains stable." "I notice there's nothing allocated for Alvera's expenses," I said calmly, pushing the paper back toward him. "You'll be living here," he replied, as if that explained everything. "Room and board covered. What more do you need?" "An apartment of my own, a car that doesn't break down every week, the ability to save for my own future." Aunt Martha laughed, a sharp sound that cut through the room. "Your future, honey. Your future is taking care of this family. That's what eldest daughters do." "Is that what you did for your family, Aunt Martha?" I asked, keeping my voice level. Her face reddened. "That's different. I didn't have the opportunities you've had." "Opportunities I created for myself while raising Madison and supporting this household." "Nobody asked you to do all that," my father interjected, his patience wearing thin. The absurdity of his statement hung in the air. Nobody asked me to pack lunches. Nobody asked me to attend parent-teacher conferences. Nobody asked me to work full-time while completing my education. "Actually," Madison spoke up unexpectedly, her voice small but steady, "you did ask her every day, every time you worked late, every time you went to the casino instead of the grocery store." The room went silent. My father's face darkened, and I saw his hands clench on the table. "What did you say?" he asked Madison, his voice dangerously quiet. I said, "Madison started, but he cut her off." "You know nothing about adult responsibilities," he snapped. "This is why you need college, to learn respect and gratitude." "About that," Madison said, and I saw her gather courage like she was putting on armor. "I don't want to go to college." If she had announced she was joining the circus, the reaction couldn't have been more dramatic. Aunt Martha gasped. Uncle Carl finally looked up from his coffee. My father's face went from red to purple. "What do you mean you don't want to go to college?" he sputtered. Madison straightened in her chair. "I want to go to art school. I've already been accepted to the Pacific Northwest College of Art in Portland." "Art school." My father's voice rose with each word. "Art school isn't real education." "It is for what I want to do," Madison insisted. "I want to be an illustrator. I've been taking online courses, building a portfolio." "With what money?" my father demanded. My own. I've been selling commissions online for 2 years. Small stuff, but enough to save for applications. This revelation hit my father like a physical blow. His younger daughter, the baby of the family, had been planning her own future without his knowledge or permission. The control he thought he wielded was slipping through his fingers. "This is your influence," he said, turning his fury toward me, filling her head with independence nonsense. "I didn't know about any of this," I said honestly, looking at Madison with new respect. Because I knew this would happen," Madison said, gesturing around the table. "I knew you'd try to control it, decide for me, make it about what the family needs instead of what I want." "What you want?" Aunt Martha scoffed. "Little girl, what you want doesn't matter. What matters is family obligation." "Like the obligation to steal from your daughter's bank account?" I asked quietly. The words landed like a bomb. My father's face went from purple to white in seconds. "What are you talking about?" Uncle Carl asked suddenly, very interested in the conversation. "The casino withdrawals, the betting sites, the money disappearing from my savings account where Dad is still a co-signer." "You're mistaken," my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I have the bank statements," I continued. $13,000 over the past 2 years. Money I saved by skipping meals wearing shoes until they fell apart, never doing anything for myself. That money was for family expenses, he tried to argue. Family expenses at the Riverboat Casino. Family expenses at DraftKings. Aunt Martha shifted uncomfortably. "Well, everyone needs to blow off steam sometimes." With money stolen from his daughter, "It's not stealing if it's family," my father said, regaining some of his bluster. "Everything in this house belongs to all of us. That's how families work." "No," I said firmly. "That's how theft works." Uncle Carl cleared his throat. "Maybe we should discuss this privately." "No," my father interrupted. "We're settling this now. Martha and Carl are here as witnesses to this arrangement. They'll confirm that you agreed to support your sister's education and contribute to household expenses." "Witnesses to what?" I asked. "To you demanding my entire salary, to you revealing you've been stealing from me, to you trying to force Madison into a future she doesn't want." "I've already told people," my father said, playing what he clearly thought was his trump card. "Your boss, Mr. Davidson. I called him yesterday to explain the family arrangement, told him how proud we are that you're stepping up to support Madison's education." The blood drained from my face. "You called my boss." "Of course. He needed to understand why you might need the salary split into different accounts. Very understanding man. Said he admired family values. The manipulation of it, the sheer audacity took my breath away. He'd gone behind my back to my employer, potentially jeopardizing my professional reputation to trap me in his scheme. That's... I struggled for words. "That's completely inappropriate." "Inappropriate." He leaned back in his chair, satisfied. "What's inappropriate is a daughter who won't support her family after everything they've done for her." "Everything you've done," the calm I'd maintained finally cracked. "You mean gambling away my savings, parentifying me at 15, taking credit for sacrifices I made." "You had a roof over your head," Aunt Martha interjected. "Food in your belly, that's more than some have." "The bare minimum required by law isn't generosity," I shot back. "It's not something I owe decades of repayment for." My father stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "This is what college does," he announced to the room. "Fills their heads with entitlement, makes them forget where they came from." "I haven't forgotten anything," I said, standing to meet him eye to eye. "I remember every night I stayed up with Madison when she was sick while you were at the casino. I remember every scholarship I turned down to stay here. I remember every dream I put on hold because family takes care of family." "And now it's your turn to be taken care of," he said, but the words sounded hollow even to him. "No," Madison said, suddenly standing as well. "It's our turn to take care of ourselves." The solidarity in her voice, the unexpected alliance seemed to shake something loose in the room's dynamics. Uncle Carl finally spoke up. Maybe the girls have a point, Marcus. Times are different now. Shut up, Carl, Aunt Martha snapped. You don't understand. You weren't raised with proper values. Proper values? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that what we're calling financial abuse now? Financial abuse. My father's voice dripped with disdain. You want to see abuse. Try raising 2 daughters alone. Try keeping a household together with construction work. Try doing it without stealing from your children, I finished. Try doing it without manipulating everyone around you. Try doing it with actual love instead of ledger books. The papers on the table with their neat calculations and highlighted percentages seemed to mock the very concept of family. This wasn't a plan for mutual support. It was a blueprint for continued exploitation. I'm done, I announced, surprising myself with the finality in my voice. This meeting is over. We're not finished here, my father warned. Yes, we are, I turned to Madison. Get your portfolio, your real plans. We're going to look at them together and you're going to tell me about art school. You can't just walk away from this, Aunt Martha said, standing as well. We have an arrangement. You have nothing, I said clearly. You have a piece of paper with made-up numbers based on a fantasy where I continue to sacrifice my life for everyone else's comfort. That fantasy ends today. My father's face had gone beyond purple to a shade I'd never seen before. If you walk away from this table, you walk away from this family. The threat that might have worked 13 years ago, even 3 years ago, landed differently now. Because what was this family really? A system where one person's success became everyone else's entitlement, where love was measured in percentages and obligations. Then I guess I'm walking, I said. I turned toward the stairs, Madison close behind me. But my father's next words stopped us both cold. Your boss is expecting the direct deposit forms tomorrow, he called out. 2 accounts, already discussed. You want to start your new position by going back on your word. The calculated cruelty of it, the way he'd boxed me in using my own professional reputation, was masterful in its manipulation. But it was also his biggest mistake, because now I understood the full scope of what I was dealing with. This wasn't a father concerned about his family's future. This was a man who would destroy my career to maintain control. We'll see about that, I said quietly and continued up the stairs. Behind us, I heard Uncle Carl's voice, tentative but clear. Marcus, I think you might have overplayed your hand here. The sound of Aunt Martha berating him followed us up the stairs, but I didn't care. Something fundamental had shifted in that dining room. The family meeting meant to trap me had instead revealed the truth. The only trap was the one I'd built for myself through years of compliance. The fallout from the family meeting was immediate and explosive. Madison and I had barely reached the upstairs hallway when we heard the crash of something breaking in the dining room below. My father's rage had found a physical outlet. Your room or mine? I asked Madison quietly. Yours, she whispered. My portfolio is hidden there anyway. I raised an eyebrow but didn't question it. We slipped into my room and I locked the door behind us, a flimsy barrier against the storm brewing downstairs. Madison went straight to my closet and pulled out a large black portfolio case I'd never seen before. I knew he'd search my room, she explained. He goes through my things when I'm at school, looking for evidence of boyfriends, drugs, whatever he thinks teenagers hide. How long has that been happening? Years. She sat on my bed with the portfolio. Started when I was 14. That's when I learned to hide things that matter. The sound of heavy footsteps on the stairs interrupted us. My father's voice boomed through the door. Open this door right now. Neither of us moved. I'm not playing games, Alvera. You have 2 minutes to open this door and come back downstairs to finish our discussion. The discussion is finished, I called back, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. You think you're so smart with your MBA and your big promotion? He snarled through the door. But you're nothing without this family. Nothing, you hear me? Madison clutched her portfolio tighter and I saw her hands trembling. I moved to sit beside her, placing a protective arm around her shoulders. "1 minute," he shouted. We waited in silence. I could hear Aunt Martha's voice now encouraging him, telling him to show them who's in charge. Uncle Carl seemed to have disappeared entirely from the conversation. The minute passed, then another. Finally, we heard him storm away, his threats echoing down the hallway. "This isn't over. You want to play hardball? Fine, we'll see how tough you are when reality hits." Madison let out a shaky breath. "He's not going to let this go." "I know," I squeezed her shoulder, "but right now tell me about art school." For the next hour, Madison showed me her work. The portfolio was filled with illustrations that took my breath away. Detailed character designs, atmospheric landscapes, sequential art that told complete stories without words. She'd been developing her talent in secret, turning our shared trauma into something beautiful. "This is incredible," I said, studying a series depicting a girl growing wings while everyone around her tried to clip them. The metaphor wasn't subtle, but the execution was masterful. "I've been taking online classes," she explained. "Saving money from commissions, I have almost $4,000 hidden away." Hidden where? Online payment accounts he doesn't know about. Different email addresses. "I learned from watching you always use your school email for anything important, never the family one he monitors." The precautions we'd both developed, the secret lives we'd built to survive his control, painted a picture of our household that would have seemed dystopian to outsiders. My phone buzzed with an incoming email. The sender made my stomach drop. "Mr. Davidson, my boss." "Alvera, I hope this finds you well. I wanted to touch base regarding the conversation I had with your father yesterday. While I admire family support, I need to clarify the direct deposit situation. Please see me first thing Monday morning. Best, Robert Davidson." "What is it?" Madison asked, seeing my face. I showed her the email. Her expression darkened. "He's really going to sabotage your job." "He's going to try." The next several hours passed in a blur of strategic planning. Madison returned to her room when things seemed calmer while I researched my options. The co-signed bank account was a problem. Legally, he had access to those funds. I'd need to open new accounts, immediately change my direct deposit before it took effect, and somehow do damage control with my boss. Around 8 that evening, my father made his next move. I heard him on the phone in his room, his voice carrying through the thin walls. "Yes, Davidson, it's Marcus again. I wanted to apologize for any confusion. Yes, Alvera's been under a lot of stress. Family obligations, you understand. Sometimes young people need guidance to make the right decisions." He was painting me as unstable, unreliable. The careful professional reputation I'd built over 5 years was being undermined by the man who claimed to want what was best for me. I grabbed my phone and started typing an email to Mr. Davidson, then stopped. Email could be forwarded, taken out of context. This required a face-to-face conversation. A knock on my door interrupted my planning. "It's me," Madison whispered. I let her in, and she immediately showed me her phone. "Look what he posted in the family group chat." The message was from my father to extended family. Prayers needed. Alvera received a blessing, a promotion, but has been corrupted by greed, refusing to help with Madison's education. My heart is broken. The responses were already pouring in. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions about my character. Great aunts quoted Bible verses about honoring thy father. Uncle Thomas, my father's brother, offered to talk sense into her. "He's building an army," Madison said grimly. "Let him." But the words sounded braver than I felt. The weight of family judgment, even from relatives I barely knew, pressed down on me. The true escalation came later that night. I was preparing for bed when I heard voices in the driveway. Peering through my window, I saw 3 cars I didn't recognize. My father had called reinforcements. Soon the house filled with relatives. I could hear them gathering in the living room, my father holding court, painting himself as the victim of an ungrateful daughter. Madison texted me from her room. "Should we go down?" "No," I texted back. "Let them have their show." But the show came to us. A delegation led by Aunt Martha knocked on my door around 10:30. "Alvera, honey, we just want to talk. Your cousin Jennifer is here. She went through something similar and wants to share her story." Jennifer. I remembered her vaguely. 5 years older than me, used to visit during summers. I opened the door a crack. Jennifer stood between Aunt Martha and another woman I didn't recognize. She looked tired, older than her 33 years, with the kind of resigned expression I'd seen in mirrors lately. "Can we come in?" Jennifer asked softly. Against my better judgment, I let them enter. They arranged themselves like an intervention, concerned faces and folded hands. "I understand what you're going through," Jennifer began. 5 years ago, I thought I could make it on my own too. Refused to help with my siblings' expenses, kept my salary for myself. "And," I prompted when she paused. "And I lost everything. The family turned their backs on me. I spent 2 years completely alone, no support system, no one to turn to when times got hard." "But you survived," I pointed out. Something flickered in her eyes. Was it regret? Warning. I came back, apologized. "Now I contribute 30% of my income to the family fund. It's peaceful." "Peaceful," I repeated. "Is that what you call it?" Aunt Martha jumped in. "Family is everything, Alvera. Without family, what do you have?" "Osi, self-respect," I answered immediately. "Autonomy, a future I build myself." "Well, pride goes before a fall," when the unknown woman intoned. She introduced herself as Cousin Ruth from my father's side. "This isn't about pride," I insisted. "This is about financial abuse." The word abuse triggered them like I'd expected. Denials, justifications, accusations of dramatics filled the room. But Jennifer remained quiet, studying her hands. "Tell her about the loans," Aunt Martha prompted Jennifer. "Tell her what happens when you don't have family backing." Jennifer's story unfolded reluctantly. Medical bills after a car accident. No one to co-sign for loans. Credit destroyed by predatory lending. The family's eventual rescue that came with permanent strings attached. But as she spoke, I heard the gaps in her narrative. The accident that happened just months after she'd declared independence. The way her credit was mysteriously ruined despite her stable income. The family members who'd swooped in as saviors after letting her struggle just long enough. "Did they cause the accident?" I asked quietly. The room went still. Jennifer's eyes widened slightly, a tell that confirmed my suspicions. "How dare you?" Aunt Martha began, but I cut her off. "No, how dare you? How dare all of you, using Jennifer's story as a cautionary tale when you orchestrated her downfall." "You're paranoid," Cousin Ruth said, but she was already standing to leave. Am I, or am I finally seeing the pattern? They filed out quickly after that, Jennifer lingering at the door. "Be careful," she whispered so low I almost missed it. "He has more plans than you know." The house gradually emptied of visitors, but the damage was done. My phone lit up with messages from relatives I'd forgotten existed, all pressuring me to do the right thing. My father had mobilized the entire extended family network against me. Around midnight, he made his final play of the evening. Another text, this time with screenshots attached. "Your choice. Support your family, or I send these to your entire office." The screenshots were of my social media from college. Nothing scandalous by normal standards, pictures from parties, posts about struggling with coursework, venting about family pressure. But taken out of context, painted with his narrative of an ungrateful, unstable daughter, they could damage my professional image. I stared at the threat, feeling the walls close in. He'd accessed accounts I'd thought were private, compiled a dossier of ammunition. The father who'd barely acknowledged my achievements had apparently been documenting my every perceived failure. Madison appeared in my doorway, her own phone in hand. "He sent me threats too. Says if I don't convince you to comply, he'll destroy my art supplies and laptop. The cruelty of threatening Madison's creative outlets, the one pure thing she'd built in this toxic environment, sparked something dangerous in me. Pack a bag, I told her. Pack what you absolutely can't replace. Documents, hard drives, whatever you need to protect. We're not sleeping here tonight. Where will we go? I thought of the $72 in my wallet, the credit cards I couldn't trust weren't being monitored, the car that might not start. But I also thought of Jennifer's whispered warning and the calculated escalation of my father's threats. I don't know, I admitted, but we're not staying here to find out what he has planned next. As we quietly gathered our essentials, I could hear my father on the phone again, his voice carrying through the walls. Yes, I understand your rates. No, both of them. By tomorrow, if possible, whatever it takes. The fragments sent chills down my spine. Whatever he was arranging, it was serious enough to require professionals and urgent enough to happen within hours. Madison met me in the hallway with a backpack and her portfolio. Ready! I looked around the house that had been both shelter and prison for 28 years. Somewhere downstairs, my father was plotting our punishment for daring to refuse his control. Somewhere in the city, relatives were shaking their heads at my ingratitude. Somewhere in Portland, an art school was waiting for Madison's brilliance. Ready, I said, and we slipped out into the night. The ultimatum had been delivered, compliance or destruction, but what my father didn't understand was that sometimes burning everything down is the only way to build something new. Monday morning arrived with the weight of dread. Madison and I had spent the weekend at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, paying cash to avoid any traces my father might follow. She'd skipped school too, afraid to return home for her uniform and books. I'd spent Sunday drafting and redrafting what I would say to Mr. Davidson, each version sounding more desperate than the last. Now, sitting in my car in the company parking lot, I watched employees stream into the building, normal people living normal lives, unaware that my professional world was about to implode. You've got this, Madison said from the passenger seat. She'd insisted on coming, unwilling to stay at the motel alone. Stay in the car, I instructed. Keep the doors locked. If anything seems off, I'll call you immediately. She squeezed my hand. Go save your job. The walk to the building felt endless. Several coworkers greeted me with odd expressions. Sympathy, curiosity, word had clearly spread about something. Sandra from accounting caught my arm at the elevator. Alvera, I just wanted to say, whatever's going on, we're here for you. My stomach sank. What exactly have you heard? She glanced around nervously. Your father was here Friday afternoon. He seemed concerned about you. Said you were going through some mental health challenges? The elevator doors opened before I could respond, but the damage was clear. He'd been laying groundwork, painting a picture of instability. Human Resources was on the 3rd floor. I'd expected to go straight to Mr. Davidson's office, but his assistant redirected me. He's waiting for you in conference room B. Ms. Patterson from HR will be joining. Multiple participants, formal setting. This was worse than I'd anticipated. The conference room felt sterile under fluorescent lights. Mr. Davidson sat at the head of the table, his usual warm demeanor replaced with professional distance. Ms. Patterson from HR had a folder open before her pen poised. Alvera, please sit, Mr. Davidson said formally. Thank you for coming in early. I took the chair across from them, my portfolio of achievements suddenly feeling flimsy in my hands. I want to start by saying, we value you as an employee. He began the words that always preceded something terrible. Your work has been exemplary, which is why the situation is so concerning. What situation exactly? I asked, forcing my voice to remain steady. Ms. Patterson leaned forward. We've received some unusual requests regarding your compensation structure. Your father contacted us about splitting your direct deposit into multiple accounts. Without my authorization, I clarified immediately. He claimed to be your financial advisor, Mr. Davidson said. He had considerable personal information, your social security number, previous addresses, even your employee IDs. The violation of it made my skin crawl. He's not my financial advisor. He's complicated. We've also received concerned calls from other family members. Ms. Patterson continued consulting her notes. Your Aunt Martha called claiming you were experiencing a mental health crisis. Your Uncle Thomas suggested you might need a leave of absence to address family issues. The coordinated attack was breathtaking in its scope. They'd been calling all weekend, building a narrative of instability. I'm not having a mental health crisis, I said firmly. I'm dealing with a family situation involving financial abuse and control. My father is attempting to claim my entire salary. The words hung in the air. Mr. Davidson's expression shifted slightly. Was that recognition or understanding? That's a serious accusation, Ms. Patterson said carefully. It's not an accusation, it's a fact. I pulled out my phone, showing them the text messages. 70% for my sister, 30% for him, 0 for me. They read in silence. I saw Miss Patterson's eyebrows rise at the ultimatum, the threats. This is... Mr. Davidson paused, choosing his words carefully. This is obviously a personal family matter, but when it affects your work, it only affects my work because he inserted himself into my professional life, I interrupted. I never gave him permission to contact you. I never authorized any changes to my compensation. He was quite convincing, Ms. Patterson admitted. He knew details about your promotion before it was publicly announced. Because Madison had mentioned it at dinner, I realized. Every piece of information shared in that house became ammunition. What else did he tell you? I asked, dreading the answer. Mr. Davidson shifted uncomfortably. He expressed concern about your ability to handle the new responsibilities, suggested you'd been under significant stresses making erratic decisions. Did he provide any evidence of these erratic decisions? He mentioned you'd abandoned family obligations, were refusing to support your younger sister's education, despite promises made. Promises I never made. I leaned forward, meeting both their gazes. I've been supporting my family since I was 15, working full-time through college, serving as a parent to my sister while completing my MBA at night. The only erratic decision I've made is finally saying no to continued exploitation. Ms. Patterson made notes while Mr. Davidson studied me. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, he spoke. Alvera, I've been your direct supervisor for 3 years. In that time, you've never missed a deadline, never had a performance issue, never given any indication of the instability your father described. Hope bloomed in my chest. However, he continued, and the hope withered, this situation has created some concerns. We've had multiple family members contacting various departments. Security reported your father has been visiting the building regularly, befriending staff. He's stalking me at work. Ms. Patterson pulled out another paper. Security logs show he's been here 14 times in the past month. Always during lunch hours, always with coffee and donuts for the security desk and reception staff. 14 times. While I'd been working focused on earning the promotion, he'd been building relationships with my coworkers, laying the groundwork for this moment. We need to address the direct deposit issue, Ms. Patterson said. He provided forms with account numbers claiming you'd authorized the split. I absolutely did not. Those forms are fraudulent. We haven't processed them, she assured me, but this raises questions about information security. How did he obtain your employee ID? Who else might have access to your personal information? The interrogation that followed was exhaustive. They needed to understand the scope of the breach, the potential risks to company information. I found myself explaining years of boundary violations, the co-signed bank account that gave him access to my financial history, the ways he'd inserted himself into every aspect of my life. I think we need to see the security footage, Mr. Davidson said finally. The next hour was surreal. We sat in the security office, watching footage of my father charming his way through the building. He was good, I had to give him that. Bringing coffee for the guards, remembering names and birthdays, telling stories about his successful daughter, who was about to become a director. "This is from last Tuesday," the security chief said, pulling up another file. On screen, my father chatted with Brenda from reception. The audio was muffled, but his gestures were animated as he appeared to share some amusing anecdote. Brenda laughed, then leaned in conspiratorially as he said something else. "Can you enhance the audio?" Mr. Davidson asked. The security chief made some adjustments. My father's voice became clearer. "Borlausch worried about her. You know, the stress of the promotion. She's always been fragile, even as a child. Takes on too much, doesn't know when to ask for help. That's why I try to stay involved, make sure she's okay." Fragile. The word hit like a slap. The narrative he'd crafted, the unstable daughter needing constant oversight, had been seeded throughout my workplace. "There's more," the security chief said grimly. He pulled up footage from Friday afternoon after the family meeting. This time, my father wasn't alone. Aunt Martha accompanied him dressed in her Sunday best, clutching a handkerchief. They stopped at reception, and Aunt Martha appeared to break down crying. Brenda rushed around the desk to comfort her. Through her theatrical sobs, we heard fragments. "Just want what's best for her. Family trying to help. Won't listen to reason." "My God," Ms. Patterson muttered, "they staged a performance." But the worst was yet to come. The security chief pulled up one final file from earlier this morning, barely an hour ago. A man I didn't recognize stood at reception showing some kind of identification. The security guard examined it, then made a phone call, nodding as he spoke. The stranger was given a visitor's badge and directed to wait. "Who is that?" I asked, though dread was already pooling in my stomach. The security chief zoomed in on the visitor log. The name made my blood run cold. "Dr. James Whitman, psychiatric evaluator." "He's here to evaluate me," I whispered. Mr. Davidson was already on his feet. "Absolutely not. This has gone too far." He turned to the security chief. "No one meets with any of our employees without proper authorization from HR. Escort him out immediately." As security handled the unwanted visitor, we returned to the conference room. The atmosphere had shifted completely. What had started as concern about a problematic employee had transformed into recognition of an orchestrated campaign of harassment. "Alvera," Ms. Patterson said gently, "I believe we owe you an apology. Your father's manipulation was sophisticated and deliberate. We should have recognized the signs sooner." "What happens now?" I asked, exhausted by the morning's revelations. "Several things," Mr. Davidson said, back to his usual supportive demeanor. "First, we're implementing a security protocol. Your father and any family members involved in this harassment are banned from the premises. Second, all your employee information will be secured with additional passwords and verification requirements." "What about my reputation? My coworkers think I'm having a breakdown." "We'll handle that," Ms. Patterson assured me. "A carefully worded communication about security protocols and the importance of verifying family emergencies through proper channels." Relief washed over me, but Mr. Davidson wasn't finished. "There is one more thing," he said carefully. "This situation has revealed some vulnerabilities in our employee protection protocols. How would you feel about working with HR to develop better policies? Your experience, unfortunately, could help protect others." The offer was unexpected. Transform my nightmare into something constructive. Use this violation to build better systems. Yes, I'd like that. "Good. Take the rest of the day paid, of course. Get your personal situation secured. We'll handle any fallout here." As I stood to leave, Ms. Patterson touched my arm. "Alvera, that psychiatric evaluator your father sent, we did some quick research. He lost his license 3 years ago for ethics violations. Your father hired a fraud." The depths of his desperation, the lengths he'd go to maintain control sent chills through me. Whatever familial bonds had existed were thoroughly severed now. You don't come back from hiring a fake psychiatrist to ambush your daughter at work. I collected Madison from the car, filling her in as we drove away from the office. She listened in horrified silence, processing the escalation. "He's lost it," she said finally. "Completely lost it." "Which makes him dangerous," I replied. "We need to figure out our next move." As if on cue, my phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code. It was from near the casino. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Miss Alvera?" The voice was male, professionally neutral. "This is William Tucker from Riverside Collections. I'm calling about your outstanding debt of $45,000. We need to discuss payment arrangements immediately." The war had entered a new phase. My father, having failed to claim my future earnings, was now coming for my past. The motel room felt smaller with each passing hour. Madison sat cross-legged on one of the beds, her laptop balanced on her knees, while I paced the narrow strip of carpet between the door and the window. The collections call had shaken me more than I wanted to admit. $45,000, I muttered for the 100th time. How is that even possible? A knock on the door made us both freeze. We'd been careful paying cash parking around back. No one should know we were here. "Alvera." Madison's voice came through the door, except Madison was sitting right in front of me. We exchanged alarmed glances. I moved to the peephole and saw my sister's face, but it wasn't Madison. It was her voice, perfectly mimicked, coming from Aunt Martha's mouth. "We know you're in there," my aunt continued in her own voice. "The motel clerk was very helpful once we explained the situation. Family emergency and all." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, room 237. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way." Madison was already gathering our things, shoving laptops and documents into bags with practiced efficiency. We'd stayed too long in one place. "We just want to talk," Aunt Martha called out. "Your father is worried sick." I typed a quick response to the unknown number. "Give us 5 minutes." 3, came the immediate reply. We were out the window in 2, Madison clutching her portfolio as we dropped a few feet to the parking lot. My car started on the second try, small miracles, and we pulled away as 2 more cars entered the motel lot. "Where now?" Madison asked, checking the side mirror nervously. "I don't know," I admitted, "but first we need to talk, really talk, about everything." 20 minutes later, we sat in a 24-hour diner on the opposite side of town. The coffee was terrible, but it was warm and public safe for now. "That voice thing," I said quietly. "How long has she been doing that?" Madison stirred sugar into her coffee, avoiding my eyes. "Years. She used to call my school pretend to be mom. Get information about my grades, my friends. I learned not to trust any call that sounded like family." "Madison, the 45,000 in debt. It's real." She looked up finally, and I saw tears threatening. "But it's not what you think. Can I show you something?" She pulled out her phone, navigating to a hidden folder that required 3 different passwords to access. The screen filled with bank statements, loan documents, credit reports. "I started monitoring everyone's credit 2 years ago," she explained, "after I caught him opening a credit card in my name when I turned 16. "What?" My voice came out sharper than intended, causing the lone waitress to glance our way. "He needed a co-signer for something, and I was convenient. I found out when a collections notice came to school instead of home." Madison pulled up a document. "But that's not the worst part. Look at this." The screen showed credit reports, mine, hers, and our father's. But there were others too. Names I didn't recognize at first, then, with growing horror, I did. "That's Mom's social security number," I whispered. "He's been using dead people's identities," Madison confirmed. "Mom, Grandma, even great-uncle Robert, who died before I was born. The 45,000 under your name is just part of it. The total is closer to 200,000 across all the identities." The diner seemed to spin around me. $200,000! A mortgage worth of debt built on lies and stolen identities. But there's more, Madison said, her voice dropping even lower. I found something else while tracking all this. Look. She pulled up a different app, something that looked like a basic banking interface, but wasn't any institution I recognized. This is how I've been saving money, she explained, completely separate from any system he can access. But while I was researching financial independence, I found forums, support groups for people escaping financial abuse. And Alvara were not his first victims. The next document made my blood run cold. It was a newspaper article from 15 years ago before Mom got sick. Local man accused of elder financial abuse. The picture was grainy, but unmistakably my father younger, but with the same calculating eyes. Grandpa, I breathed. Madison nodded. Dad's father, he had dementia, and Dad had power of attorney, drained everything before anyone noticed. The charges were dropped because Grandpa died before trial, and the family didn't want scandal. Mom knew. Look at the date. 3 months before her diagnosis, I think the stress. We sat in silence, processing the implications. Our mother's cancer had seemed so sudden, so aggressive. Had the discovery of her husband's true nature contributed to her decline? There's one more thing, Madison said, pulling up an email. This came yesterday, but I was afraid to tell you with everything else happening. The email was from Pacific Northwest College of Art, not just an acceptance, a full scholarship offer based on her portfolio submission, living expenses included. Madison, this is incredible. For the first time in days, genuine joy cut through the fear. When did you... The portfolio I've been building for 2 years, I submitted it months ago. But Alvera, look at the deadline. I had to accept by Friday or lose the scholarship. 4 days. You have to take it, I said immediately. I can't leave you dealing with all this alone. You can, and you will. I grabbed her hands across the table. This is your escape route, your chance at a life he can't touch. But the debt he's put in my name is identity theft, criminal. We'll fight it, but not from here. You need to get to Portland, get safe, get established. Madison's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and paled. It's from Dad. The message was brief. Your sister's selfishness has forced my hand. Come home now or I'll report your car as stolen. You have 1 hour. My car, Madison said, confused. I don't have a... Her eyes widened. He put a car in my name. I was already pulling up rideshare apps. We're getting you on a bus to Portland tonight. Alvera. No arguments. Pack light, take only essentials. We'll ship the rest later. What about you? I thought about the $45,000 in debt, the band family members, the job I'd have to return to tomorrow, despite everything. I'll figure it out, I said with more confidence than I felt. But first, we get you safe. The next 2 hours were a blur of motion. ATM visits to pull cash from my remaining funds. A thrift store run for a small suitcase. The bus station where we paid cash for a ticket under Madison's middle name. As we waited for her departure, Madison pulled out a small notebook. I need to give you something. The notebook was filled with her handwriting, account numbers, passwords, evidence she'd gathered over 2 years. But there was more. Contact information for people from those support groups, lawyers who worked pro bono on financial abuse cases, a detailed timeline of our father's crimes going back years. You've been planning this, I realized. I've been planning our escape, she corrected. Both of us. I just thought we'd have more time. The bus arrived too soon and not soon enough. I helped Madison load her single suitcase, her portfolio, her laptop bag containing her entire future. Call me when you get there, I instructed. Use the prepaid phone, not your regular one. What if he comes after me? He won't. I said it firmly, willing it to be true. He needs you here as leverage against me. Once you're gone, you're no use to him. Madison hugged me fiercely. This isn't how it was supposed to be. We were supposed to escape together. We are, I promised. Just not at the same time. Now go. Build something beautiful. I watched the bus pull away, taking my baby sister toward a future our father couldn't contaminate. Only when it disappeared around the corner did I allow myself to feel the fear. My phone had been buzzing nonstop calls from relatives, texts from unknown numbers, voicemails I didn't dare listen to. The hour deadline had passed. Whatever consequences my father had planned were already in motion. A police car pulled into the bus station parking lot and my heart stopped. But the officer simply bought coffee from the vending machine and left. Not yet then, but soon. I made my way back to my car, Madison's notebook clutched in my hand. In it lay 2 years of evidence carefully gathered by a teenage girl who'd seen the prison we lived in more clearly than I had. My phone rang. Sandra from accounting. Alvera, thank God. Are you okay? The building's been crazy today. What happened? Your father showed up with the police. Said his daughter stole a car. Security wouldn't let them in, but it was a scene. Mr. Davidson had to get involved. Is my job... Your job is fine. Actually better than fine. That policy work they mentioned, they're fast-tracking it. And... She lowered her voice. I heard through the grapevine that once this dies down, they're considering adding a signing bonus to your promotion. Hardship compensation or something. A lifeline thrown when I needed it most. Sandra, I need one more favor. Can you recommend a good lawyer? Actually, I can do better. My sister-in-law specializes in financial fraud. Want her number? As I took down the information, I felt something shift. The isolation my father had cultivated, the shame that kept victims silent, it only worked in darkness. The moment you started talking, started connecting, the power structure crumbled. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. Bus pulling out now. I love you. Now go fight like hell. I sat in my car in the empty bus station parking lot, surrounded by evidence of crimes spanning decades. My father had taken out loans in my name, destroyed my mother's peace, stolen from his own father. He'd built an empire of control on a foundation of forged signatures and family shame. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd taught his daughters to be survivors. And survivors have nothing left to lose. Tuesday morning arrived gray and drizzling, matching my mood perfectly. I sat in the office of Rebecca Chen, Sandra's sister-in-law, surrounded by papers that documented the systematic destruction of my financial life. This is extensive, Rebecca said, adjusting her glasses as she reviewed the documents. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with an intensity that suggested personal experience with predators. How long have you been aware of the identity theft? Fully aware about 72 hours? Suspecting something was wrong, years. She nodded, making notes on a legal pad. Walk me through the timeline. For the next hour, I laid out everything Madison had discovered. The credit cards opened when I was in college. The personal loans taken out during my MBA program. The car loan Madison mentioned, a $25,000 vehicle I'd never seen currently in default. Your sister documented this thoroughly, Rebecca observed, impressed. This notebook is gold for our case. Our case? Oh yes, this isn't just a civil matter anymore. Identity theft, fraud, forgery, these are criminal charges. Your father has crossed multiple federal lines. The weight of that settled over me. Criminal charges. Not just family drama or financial disputes, but actual crimes that could result in prison time. I need you to understand, Rebecca continued, once we start this process, there's no going back. Criminal charges can't be dropped because of family pressure or reconciliation. Are you prepared for that? Could I send my father to prison? The man who tucked me in at night when I was small, who taught me to ride a bike, who'd also systematically destroyed my future for his own gain. He hired someone to declare me mentally incompetent, I said quietly. He's trying to destroy my career. He's already stolen my financial identity. What's left to preserve? Rebecca smiled grimly. Good, that's the mindset you'll need. Now let's talk immediate steps. The list was overwhelming. File police reports. Freeze credit with all bureaus. Contact each fraudulent account. Dispute every transaction. Document everything. What about my sister's debts? I asked. Same process, but Alvera, I need to warn you this is going to get uglier before it gets better. People like your father don't give up easily. As if summoned by her words, my phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the prefix. It was from my father's construction company. Don't answer, Rebecca advised. Let everything go to voicemail. We need documentation. The call ended, then immediately rang again. This time I let it go to voicemail and played it on speaker. This is Tom Bradley from Bradley Construction. I'm calling about Marcus's emergency. He collapsed on the job site this morning. High blood pressure, stress-related. He's asking for his daughter Alvera at the hospital. Please call back immediately. My hand moved toward the phone automatically, the trained response of years, but Rebecca stopped me. Wait, let me call the hospital directly. She was back in 5 minutes, her expression dark. There's no patient by that name at any area hospital. Your father is currently on a job site in full health according to his foreman. The manipulation was so transparent, yet it still triggered that old guilt. What if he really was sick? What if this was the time I didn't respond and something terrible happened? That's exactly what he's counting on, Rebecca said, reading my expression. The patterns of a lifetime don't break easily. But remember, he's literally committing crimes while trying to manipulate your emotions. We spent the next 3 hours at the police station filing formal reports. The detective assigned to our case, a middle-aged woman named Harris, had seen it all before. Family identity theft is more common than people think, she said, taking my statement. Parents who feel entitled to their children's success, who see their kids as extensions of themselves rather than separate people. Your documentation is some of the best I've seen. My sister gathered most of it. She's 18. Detective Harris shook her head. 18 and already protecting herself from financial predators. She'll go far. The credit reports, when we finally accessed them all, were worse than Madison's initial assessment. 3 credit cards maxed out, 2 personal loans in default, a car loan for a luxury vehicle, store credit accounts at places I'd never shopped. The total was climbing toward $60,000, not counting the damage to my credit score. How did he get away with this for so long? I asked, staring at the ruins of my financial reputation. Co-signed accounts from when you were younger gave him access to your information, Rebecca explained. Plus, he knew enough personal details to pass security questions. Mother's maiden name, first pet, elementary school, all things a parent would know. The violation felt complete. Every security measure designed to protect against strangers was useless against the person who'd been there for all your firsts. My phone had been silent for an hour, an ominous sign when it exploded with notifications. The family group chat had discovered my location through someone's social media post. A coffee shop employee had recognized me and posted about the ungrateful daughter being in their shop. The messages ranged from pleading to threatening. Your father is heartbroken. How can you do this to him? Family doesn't involve police. You're destroying our reputation. If you proceed with these false accusations, you're dead to this family. Think of Madison. She needs her father. That last one made me laugh bitterly. Madison was safely on a bus to Portland, heading toward the life she deserved. Rebecca reviewed the messages with professional interest. Save all of these. Witness intimidation is a crime, too. They're my family, I said weakly. No, they're your father's enablers. There's a difference. We left the police station with case numbers, official documentation, and a temporary protection order preventing my father from contacting me directly. It felt both monumental and insufficient. Oh, now the real work begins, Rebecca said as we returned to her office. Contacting creditors, disputing accounts, rebuilding your credit. It'll take months, maybe years. I don't have years, I said, exhaustion creeping into my voice. I start my new position next week. I need to find an apartment, buy professional clothes, establish some kind of normal life. Then we prioritize. First, let's get you a new bank account at a completely different institution. Then a secured credit card to start rebuilding, one step at a time. The bank was our next stop. The account manager listened to my story with practiced sympathy. Clearly, I wasn't the first person to sit in his office escaping financial abuse. We have protocols for this situation, he assured me. Enhanced security, verbal passwords, no information given to anyone claiming to be family. Opening that account with my meager remaining funds felt like planting a flag. This money was mine. Small as the amount was, it belonged solely to me. Back at Rebecca's office, we began the tedious process of calling creditors. Each call followed the same script: explain the identity theft, reference the police report, request account closure, and debt removal. Some were sympathetic, others were skeptical. One particularly nasty collections agent accused me of trying to dodge legitimate debts, until Rebecca took the phone and unleashed a stream of legal terminology that left him stuttering apologies. You're going to need thick skin for this process, she warned. Credit companies don't care about family dynamics, they just want their money. By late afternoon, I was emotionally and mentally drained. We'd contacted 8 creditors, filed 6 disputes, and uncovered 3 more accounts we hadn't known about. The full scope of the damage was staggering. My phone rang. Madison on the prepaid phone. I'm here, she said, and I could hear relief in her voice. Portland is beautiful. The school is amazing. My roommate seems nice. Good. That's so good. I stepped outside for privacy, needing to hear that something positive had come from this chaos. How are things there? Complicated, but manageable. Don't worry about me. Always the big sister, she said softly. Alvera, I need to tell you something. Remember the trust fund Eleanor mentioned, Mom's secret money? Yeah, I found it. Or at least I found references to it in Mom's old emails. It's real, and it's in both our names set up so Dad couldn't touch it. Hope flickered. How much? I don't know, but the lawyer's name is in Mom's contacts, Jonathan Wheeler, based in Seattle. Seattle, far from here, far from our father's influence. Another piece of our mother's escape plan put in place before cancer stole her chance to use it. I'll call tomorrow, I promised. Alvera, I love you. Thank you for getting me out. Love you too. Now go be an art student, make terrible coffee, and stay up too late discussing philosophy. Her laugh was worth everything we'd been through. I'll try, but first I'm gonna paint. Something bright, something that looks nothing like home. After we hung up, I stood in the parking lot, letting the drizzle wash over me. Somewhere across the state, my baby sister was starting fresh. Here I was, neck deep in the wreckage of our father's greed. Rebecca appeared in the doorway. You okay? Yeah, just processing. Good news, I heard back from one of the credit card companies. They're accepting the fraud claim. The debt will be removed from your report within 90 days. One victory among dozens of battles yet to fight. But it was something. What's next? I asked. Document review. I want to go through every piece of paper Madison collected. There might be patterns or missing connections that could strengthen the criminal case. We worked until the office building emptied around us. Page by page, Madison's notebook revealed the intricate web our father had woven. She'd tracked his gambling losses against new accounts opened in our names. The correlation was damning. Every big loss preceded a new fraud. This is RICO-level stuff, Rebecca muttered. Organized crime, essentially, using family members as unwitting participants in a financial fraud scheme. You think it's that serious? Alvera, your father has stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars over decades using multiple victims' identities. This isn't a desperate parent making a mistake. This is a career criminal who happens to be related to you. The truth of it settled like lead in my stomach. My father wasn't a good man, driven to bad choices by circumstance. He was a predator who'd found the perfect victims in his own family, people conditioned from birth to trust him, to forgive him, to enable him. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check your email, Eleanor. The email contained a single attachment, a video file dated 2 months before my mother's death. I glanced at Rebecca, who nodded permission. My mother's face filled the screen, gaunt from chemo, but eyes still bright with determination. "My dear girl," she began, "if you're watching this, it means Eleanor kept her promise. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you myself, but I've done what I can." She went on to detail financial protection she'd put in place. The trust fund Madison had mentioned, life insurance policies with ironclad beneficiary designations, documentation of our father's crimes hidden in safety deposit boxes. "He's sick," she said simply, "not in a way medicine can cure. The gambling, the lying, the theft, it's who he is. I stayed too long thinking I could manage it, contain it, but you don't have to. When the time comes and you'll know when run, take what I've left you and build lives he can't poison." The video ended with her looking directly into the camera. "I love you both beyond words. Be free." Rebecca and I sat in silence after it finished. Then she pulled out her legal pad with renewed determination. "This changes our strategy. We're not just fighting current fraud, we're executing your mother's escape plan just 13 years delayed." "You think we can win?" "Whoa, win?" Rebecca smiled fiercely. "We're going to destroy him, legally, financially, completely. By the time we're done, he won't be able to get a library card in his own name, much less steal anyone else's identity." The rain had turned into a steady downpour by the time I left her office. Somewhere my father was probably spinning new lies, recruiting new flying monkeys, planning new attacks. The rest of the family was choosing sides, weighing their loyalty against their complicity. But I had something they didn't expect. A sister safe in Portland, a mother's blessing from beyond the grave. A lawyer who understood that sometimes the only way to stop a predator is to become a better hunter. The war for my financial freedom had begun, and for the first time, I thought I might actually win. Wednesday morning's family intervention attempt began at 6:43 a.m., with my grandmother calling from her nursing home. I'd been screening calls, but something about the early hour made me answer. "Alvara, sweetheart." Her voice was fragile, confused. "Your father says you're trying to put him in jail. That can't be right. Tell me, it's not right." The manipulation was exquisite, using the one person I couldn't bear to hurt the grandmother who'd shown me nothing but love. I gripped the phone tighter. "Grandma, it's complicated. He says you're having a breakdown, that the stress of your new job has made you paranoid. He's so worried about you, dear." Of course, he was spinning it that way. In his version, he was the concerned father, I was the unstable daughter, and the systematic theft of hundreds of thousands of dollars simply didn't exist. "Grandma, did he tell you he's been stealing money using fake accounts?" A pause. Then quietly, "Your grandfather said things sometimes, before the end, about missing money, but I thought, the dementia—" "It wasn't dementia, Grandma. I'm sorry." I heard her sharp intake of breath. For a moment, I thought we might have a breakthrough. Then, another voice came on the line, my cousin Jennifer, the one who'd tried to warn me. "You need to stop this," Jennifer said flatly. "Whatever you think you're accomplishing, it's not worth destroying the family." "I'm not destroying anything. I'm protecting myself from—" "Do you know what happened after I tried to leave?" she interrupted. "Really no, not the sanitized version they told at the intervention." "Jennifer, they destroyed me, Alvera, not just financially. They called my employer, my landlord, my friends. They made sure I had nowhere to turn except back to the family. And when I came back broken and desperate, they made me grateful for the cage. That's exactly why I have to—" "Your father has a plan. He always has a plan. Right now you think you're ahead because you have police reports and a lawyer. But he's 3 moves ahead and you don't even see the board." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, Jennifer's warning echoing in my mind. What plan, what moves was I not seeing? The answer came 2 hours later when I arrived at work. The parking lot was fuller than usual for this early, and I recognized several cars: Aunt Martha's sedan, Uncle Carl's pickup, Cousin Robert's motorcycle. They'd formed a prayer circle at the employee entrance. "There she is," Aunt Martha called out as I approached. "Everyone join hands. We're going to pray for Alvera's healing." My coworkers were arriving for their shifts, forced to navigate around my family's theatrical display. Some looked sympathetic, others annoyed, most just confused. Stop this," I said quietly, trying to push through the circle. "We're not giving up on you," Uncle Robert declared loudly. "Family doesn't abandon family even when they're sick." "I'm not sick." "Denial is part of the illness," Aunt Martha said sadly, "but we love you enough to stand here every morning until you accept help." The security guard I'd seen in the footage with my father approached uncertainly. "Ma'am, is there a problem?" "These people are harassing me," I said firmly. "We're family," Martha protested. "We're praying. Since when is prayer harassment?" "Since you're blocking employee access and creating a disturbance," the guard replied, but I could see his uncertainty. The optics were terrible: a family prayer circle versus the angry daughter trying to have them removed. Mr. Davidson appeared, taking in the scene with professional calm. "Perhaps we could move this gathering to the public sidewalk. Company property needs to remain clear for business operations." They moved, but only to just beyond the property line where they continued their performance. I heard Aunt Martha telling a arriving coworker about my mental health crisis and how the family was supporting me through this difficult time. Inside, Sandra intercepted me before I reached my office. "Conference room B, now." The room was full: Mr. Davidson, Ms. Patterson, from HR, Rebecca, my lawyer, and a woman I didn't recognize. "This is Dr. Sarah Kim," Ms. Patterson introduced. "She's our corporate crisis management consultant." Crisis management, because that's what my life had become: a crisis to be managed. "Oh, the prayer circle is a problem," Dr. Kim said without preamble. "It's garnering attention on social media. Someone live-streamed it with the caption, 'Family prays for disturbed daughter outside her workplace.' It's been shared over 1,000 times in 2 hours." My phone was in my hand before I finished the thought. Sure enough, there I was, on Facebook, Twitter, even TikTok. The video showed me pushing through the circle while they prayed loudly for my healing. Comments ranged from supporting the loving family to calling me ungrateful. A few recognized the manipulation, but they were drowned out by the moral majority. "This is character assassination," Rebecca said. "We need to respond." "No," Dr. Kim disagreed. "Responding feeds the narrative. We need to redirect. Alvera, are you willing to take a temporary work-from-home arrangement?" "That's letting them win," I protested. "That's protecting yourself and the company while we handle this strategically," she corrected. "Your family has weaponized public sympathy. We need to remove their stage." The discussion that followed was tactical, professional, and deeply surreal. We strategized responses to prayer circles like military campaigns. Dr. Kim had apparently dealt with similar situations: stalkers using religious or family cover for harassment. "What's their endgame?" Mr. Davidson asked. "Control," Rebecca answered. "Either Alvera capitulates to their demands, or they destroy her reputation so thoroughly that she has no choice but to return to the family fold." "Like Jennifer," I said quietly. My phone rang another unknown number. On speaker, we heard a cheerful voice. "Hello, this is Amy from Channel 7 News. We're doing a human interest piece on families supporting loved ones through mental health challenges. I understand your family is holding a prayer vigil." I hung up without responding. "They called the media," Dr. Kim observed. "This escalation is faster than typical. Your father is either very smart or has help." "Both," I admitted. "He's been planning something like this for years." We spent the next hour crafting a response strategy. I would work from home indefinitely. Security would prevent any family members from entering the building. Legal cease and desist letters would be sent. The company would release a neutral statement about supporting employees' privacy and safety. What about the social media problem? I asked. Dr. Kim smiled grimly. Leave that to me. I have some experience in narrative warfare. By noon, the prayer circle had grown. Extended family I hadn't seen in years had joined, along with members of my father's church. They sang hymns, held signs reading, "Faith heals families," and told anyone who'd listen about my mental breakdown. But something else was happening too. Dr. Kim's counter-narrative was spreading. Screenshots of my father's gambling debts appeared on the same platforms sharing the prayer video. The police report numbers were leaked. Someone I suspected Rebecca had created an anonymous blog detailing financial abuse tactics using examples that sounded remarkably familiar. My phone rang again. This time it was Madison. "I'm watching the live stream," she said, horror in her voice. "Alvara, they brought Grandma. She's in her wheelchair at a prayer circle in 40-degree weather." I pulled up the stream. Sure enough, there was our 91-year-old grandmother bundled in blankets, but clearly cold, confused, and uncomfortable. The comments were starting to shift. Using an elderly woman as a prop was too far even for the family values crowd. "I have to go get her," I said. "No," Rebecca said firmly. "That's what they want. You approaching gives them footage of the disturbed daughter confronting her loving family. I'll call Adult Protective Services. For my grandmother, for an elderly woman with dementia being kept in unsafe conditions for a publicity stunt, let the professionals handle it." Within an hour, APS had arrived. The live stream showed them assessing my grandmother, then having stern words with Aunt Martha. The optics reversed completely. Now my family looked like elder abusers using a vulnerable woman for manipulation. Grandma was taken back to her nursing home, but not before cameras caught her saying clearly, "I want to go inside. It's cold. Where's Alvera?" The prayer circle dissolved quickly after that. Bad publicity was one thing, an elder abuse investigation was another. Family members scattered, suddenly remembering urgent appointments. My phone exploded with angry texts. "You called APS on your own grandmother. This is a new low even for you. We were trying to help you." But mixed in were other messages. "I'm sorry I participated. I didn't realize what was really happening. Cousin Amy. Your father threatened my husband's job if we didn't show up. Second cousin Maria. Is it true about the identity theft? He did something similar to my mother years ago. Great Aunt Patricia." The cracks in the family facade were showing. My father's control relied on fear, shame, and isolation. Public scrutiny was destroying all three. That evening, I sat in my apartment, the same one I'd hidden in before this all began, reading through the messages. Rebecca had advised me to save everything, build a harassment case on top of the fraud charges. A knock at my door made me freeze. After everything, I was jumpy about unexpected visitors. But looking through the peephole, I saw Jennifer. She looked different from the intervention, less defeated, more determined. "Can we talk?" she asked when I opened the door. "Really talk this time." I let her in, wary but curious. She sat on my second-hand couch, looking around the sparse apartment. "I wasn't trying to scare you this morning," she began. "I was trying to warn you. He does have a plan. I know because he used the same one on me 5 years ago." "What plan?" Jennifer pulled out her phone, showing me screenshots of text messages. First comes the family pressure, then the public humiliation, then the workplace harassment, but that's all misdirection. Misdirection from what? From what he's really doing behind the scenes. She showed me another document. While you're fighting the public battles, he's quietly transferring assets, moving money offshore, setting up shells companies, making himself judgment-proof. My blood ran cold. He's hiding assets. By the time criminal charges stick, there'll be nothing to seize. No restitution possible. He'll go to minimum security prison for a few years, then come out to hidden millions. "How do you know all this?" Jennifer smiled bitterly. Because I helped him set it up 5 years ago. After they broke me, I became the family's financial advisor. I know where all the bodies are buried. And you're telling me this, why? Because I got a call this morning. He wants me to do it again. Transfer more assets, hide more money. But this time, she met my eyes. This time, I have a choice, and I'm choosing to burn it all down with you. Why now? What changed? Madison, she said simply, seeing her escape, seeing you fight for her. I realized I'd been protecting the wrong people. My siblings are still trapped. My mother died thinking she was crazy because gaslit her about missing money. Enough. We talked for hours, Jennifer laying out the financial web our father had woven. It was more complex than anything Madison had discovered. Offshore accounts in the Caymans, shell companies layered 3 deep, real estate holdings under false names. He's not just a gambling addict who steals, Jennifer explained. He's built an empire on family members' stolen identities. We're not victims, we're unwilling investors in his criminal enterprise. How much are we talking about? Conservative estimate $3 million, maybe more. $3 million, built on the destroyed credit of his children, siblings' parents, built on my mother's despair and Madison's fear and my sacrificed dreams. What do you need from me? I asked. Jennifer smiled, and for the first time I saw hope in her expression. Access to your lawyer, protection when I turn whistleblower, and maybe, she hesitated, then continued, maybe when this is over, we can be the family we should have been, the cousins who support each other instead of enabling a monster. I'd like that, I said, meaning it. After she left, I called Rebecca with the update. Her excitement was palpable even through the phone. This changes everything, she said. With an insider witness and financial documentation, we're not just talking fraud charges anymore. This is RICO territory, federal investigation, asset forfeiture. He'll destroy her for this betrayal. He'll try, but Jennifer has something you didn't at the start. She has you. You've already taken the public hits, drawn his fire. She can work in the shadows while you're the lightning rod. Lightning rod. It was an apt description for what I'd become. Every strike aimed at me illuminated more of his crimes, drew more attention to the truth. My phone buzzed with one final message of the day. Aunt Martha, the eternal enabler. I hope you're happy. Your grandmother cried all evening, confused about why her granddaughter hates her. This vendetta has to stop. I typed back my first direct response to any of them. It stops when he stops stealing, when he stops lying, when he faces justice for decades of crimes, not 1 second before. Then I blocked her number, and Uncle Carl's, and all the rest of the enablers who'd chosen to protect a criminal over his victims. The battle lines were drawn clearly now. On one side, my father and his diminishing army of flying monkeys. On the other, me, Madison, Jennifer, and the slowly growing number of family members beginning to see the truth. Tomorrow would bring new attacks, new manipulations, new attempts to break me. But tonight, for the first time since this began, I wasn't fighting alone. Thursday morning brought an unexpected ally. Eleanor, my estranged godmother, stood at my apartment door at 7 a.m. sharp, looking like she'd stepped out of a corporate boardroom despite the early hour. Her silver hair was pulled back in an elegant chignon, her charcoal suit impeccable, her expression unreadable. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "May I come in?" I'd only seen Eleanor in person once since my mother's funeral. She'd appeared at my college graduation, handed me an envelope with $1,000 cash, whispered, "For emergencies only," and disappeared before I could thank her. The money had paid for my car repairs that winter, keeping me able to work and attend classes. Now she sat in my small living room, assessing everything with sharp eyes. "You look tired." "It's been a rough week." "I imagine so. Your father's prayer circle stunt made the legal blogs, religious expression versus workplace harassment a case study. You're famous in certain circles." "Great. Just what I needed." Eleanor leaned forward. "Actually, it is. The legal community is watching now. Your father overplayed his hand with that spectacle, but then he always was prone to theatrical gestures when cornered. You sound like you know him well. I should. I was married to his brother for 3 years. At my shocked expression, she smiled thinly. You didn't know your Uncle Stephen. He died before you were born, but not before I learned exactly what kind of family I'd married into. The revelation reframed everything. Eleanor wasn't just my mother's college friend who'd agreed to be my godmother. She was a former family member who'd escaped. Tell me, I said simply. Eleanor pulled out a tablet, swiping to a folder labeled with my mother's name. Your mother and I met in law school. Did you know she was in law school? No, I thought she studied education. That was later, after she dropped out to marry your father. Eleanor's voice carried old anger. Brilliant woman, law review, headed for a federal clerkship. Then she met Marcus at a campus event. She showed me photos I'd never seen. My mother, young and vibrant, standing with a group of law students. Her smile was confident, ambitious, nothing like the worn-down woman I remembered. The family love-bombed her, Eleanor continued, especially your father. Charming, attentive, painting himself as a hard-working man supporting his struggling family. Your mother, raised in foster care, desperately wanted the big family she'd never had. So she gave up law school. Not immediately. First came the small requests. Could she help with some legal paperwork? Could she co-sign a small loan? Could she postpone the clerkship for just one semester while the family dealt with a crisis? The pattern was familiar. Too familiar. By the time she realized what was happening, she was pregnant with you, married, and financially entangled with the entire family. Your father had used her credit to take out student loans for education he never pursued. Used her name for business ventures that failed. Classic financial abuse disguised as family support. She never told me any of this. Shame is a powerful silencer, and your father was expert at gaslighting. Every failed venture was bad luck. Every debt was a temporary setback. Every sacrifice was an investment in the family's future. Eleanor swiped to another document. This is what broke her. It was illegal filing from 20 years ago. My mother had attempted to report the identity theft to separate her finances from the family's. The case number was there, the initial report filed. What happened? Your grandfather, your father's father, had a convenient heart attack the day before the hearing. Your mother, 8 months pregnant with you, was blamed for the stress that caused it. The entire family turned on her. She withdrew the complaint to keep the peace. But Grandpa lived another 10 years. Yes, funny how his heart condition only flared during legal proceedings against family members. The manipulation spanning generations took my breath away. This wasn't just my father's sickness, it was a family system refined over decades. Your mother tried once more to escape, Eleanor continued. When you were 5 and Madison was still a baby, she'd secretly saved money-made plans. Then your father discovered the bank account. Well, what did he do? Nothing violent. Nothing that would leave marks. He simply had her involuntarily committed for 72 hours, claiming postpartum psychosis. By the time she got out, he'd cleaned out the account and convinced everyone she was unstable. I felt sick. The mother I remembered as fragile, anxious, constantly apologizing, had been systematically broken by the man who claimed to love her. Why didn't you help her? The accusation came out harsher than intended. Eleanor's composure cracked slightly. I tried. She wouldn't accept it. The conditioning was too strong, the threats too real. He'd convinced her that losing custody of you girls was inevitable if she left, that you'd be raised by him and his family without her influence. For a woman who'd grown up without family, the threat of her children losing their mother was unbearable. So she stayed. She stayed, and she documented. Eleanor pulled up video files. These are from the last year of her life. She knew the cancer was aggressive. She knew she was running out of time, so she built you an escape route. The first video was dated 6 months before her death. My mother looked directly at the camera, speaking clearly, despite her hollow cheeks and thinning hair. Eleanor, if you're watching this, I'm gone and my girls need the truth. Everything is in the safety deposit box at First National, box 472. The key is hidden in the music box I gave Alvera for her 13th birthday, the one that plays Claire de Lune. My hands shook. That music box sat on my dresser at the house. I'd grabbed many things during our escape, but not that. More videos followed, my mother detailing financial crimes, naming dates, amounts, victims. She'd investigated like the lawyers she'd trained to be building a case she'd never lived to prosecute. She hired me officially as your godmother 2 weeks before she died, Eleanor said. Not for religious reasons, but as a legal guardian in waiting. The papers are filed. If anything happens to you before Madison turns 21, I have immediate custody rights. He doesn't know. He never bothered to ask. Assumed godmother was an honorary title, not a legal position. Eleanor closed the tablet and studied me. Your mother's one regret was that she couldn't model strength for you, that you grew up seeing her broken rather than fighting. But Alvera, she fought in the only way she could. She prepared for a future where her daughters could be free. What's in the safety deposit box? I don't know. She paid for it through 2030, listed you and Madison as authorized users once you turned 18. But you need the key. The key hidden in a music box in a house now enemy territory. Of course. There's more, Eleanor said. The trust fund Madison mentioned, it's real. Your mother liquidated her life insurance policy before she died, moving it into an irrevocable trust I manage. Your father contested it, but the legal structure held. How much? Enough. Split between you and Madison, enough for fresh starts. But there are conditions. You can't access it while maintaining contact with your father or enabling family members. She built in a no-contact clause. She knew the only way to ensure your freedom was to make it more valuable than family obligation. Smart woman even at the end. My phone buzzed with an alert from Rebecca. Urgent, check your email, new development. The email contained a link to a news article. Local business owner faces federal investigation for multi-state fraud ring. The article detailed how Marcus, my father, was now under federal investigation. The prayer circle stunt had drawn attention from a prosecutor who recognized the patterns of organized crime. Jennifer's whistleblowing had triggered raids on 3 businesses associated with him. It's happening, I breathed. Eleanor smiled, the first genuine warmth I'd seen from her. Your mother would be proud. You're finishing what she started. I need that key. Yes, and I have an idea about how to get it. She pulled out her phone. I still have contacts in the legal community. What if we could get a court order for retrieval of personal property, completely legal, supervised by law enforcement? Would that work? With the protection order in place and ongoing criminal investigation, a judge would likely grant limited access for documented personal items. The plan came together quickly. Eleanor made calls while I texted Rebecca updates. Within 2 hours, we had a strategy file for emergency property retrieval, specifically listing sentimental items with no monetary value. Include the music box, among other things. Childhood photos, Madison's art supplies left behind, personal documents. He can't object without looking petty, Eleanor explained, denying access to childhood memories during a family crisis. Even his enablers would question that. That afternoon, Eleanor drove me to the courthouse. Watching her work was like seeing what my mother could have been: brilliant, strategic, taking no prisoners in legal arguments. The judge, clearly impressed by her preparation, granted the order immediately. You have 2 hours on Saturday morning, he ruled. Sheriff's Department will supervise. Remove only items listed in the petition. No contact with other household members present. It felt like victory, but Eleanor cautioned me as we left. Your father will know we're after something specific. He's not stupid, just arrogant. Be prepared for tricks. Like what? Like mysteriously broken music boxes, missing items, sudden emergencies requiring police to leave. I've seen it all. That evening, I sat with Eleanor in her hotel room. She'd taken a suite downtown, refusing my offer of the couch. We went through more of my mother's files, building our understanding of the criminal enterprise disguised as a family. "Can I ask you something?" I said during a break. "Why stay away so long? Why not intervene sooner?" Eleanor was quiet for a moment. "Your mother made me promise. She said if I stayed visible, your father would find a way to neutralize me, make me complicit, or destroy my credibility. She wanted me clean, untouchable, ready when you girls needed me." 15 years is a long time to wait. Yes, but she knew her daughters, knew you'd both inherit her intelligence, her strength. She bet on you figuring it out eventually, just like she did. The only question was whether you'd have the courage to act on it. Madison had the courage first. No, Eleanor corrected. Madison had the wisdom to hide her plans. You had the courage to stand and fight publicly, both necessary, both brave in different ways. We talked until midnight, filling in gaps in family history. Eleanor told me about Uncle Stephen, who died in a car accident that might not have been accidental after threatening to expose the family's crimes. About great aunts who'd lost their homes to family financial schemes. About a cousin who disappeared entirely rather than remain trapped. "This ends with us," I said finally. "Madison and me. We're the last generation they'll prey on." Eleanor raised her water glass in a toast. "To your mother's daughters, may they succeed where she couldn't." Friday passed in a blur of legal preparation. The federal investigation was moving fast. 3 family businesses had been seized accounts, frozen records subpoenaed. Family members who'd stood in prayer circles were now receiving their own visits from federal agents. The family group chat had gone silent. Even Aunt Martha had stopped her daily guilt trips. They were scared, and they should be. Saturday morning arrived gray and foggy. Eleanor picked me up at 6:30, ready for the scheduled 8 a.m. property retrieval. Rebecca met us at the house, along with 2 sheriff's deputies. The house looked exactly as I'd left it a week ago, but felt like a foreign country now. My father's truck was gone. He'd clearly chosen not to be present. But Aunt Martha's car was in the driveway. "She's here as the family representative," one deputy explained, "to ensure nothing beyond the court order is removed." We entered through the front door I'd once considered home. Everything was the same, but different, the family photos still on walls, but now I saw the lies they represented. The furniture my mother had chosen now tainted by memories of manipulation. Martha sat at the dining room table, the same one where the family meeting had exploded a week ago. She didn't acknowledge us, just watched with cold eyes. I went to my room, first deputies flanking me. It had been searched drawers, open closet, reorganized, but the music box sat on my dresser apparently untouched. I picked it up carefully, winding the key. Claire de Lune played haunting and beautiful. Under the velvet lining, I felt the edge of something hard, the safety deposit key exactly where my mother had hidden it. But something else was wrong. The music box was too light. I opened the hidden compartment fully, the key was there, but the emergency cash I'd hidden was gone, as were several pieces of jewelry my mother had left me. "Those items aren't on the retrieval list," Martha said from the doorway. "Family property stays with family." I pocketed the key without responding. We had what we came for. The rest of the retrieval went quickly. Madison's art supplies were mysteriously missing. She must have taken them, Martha claimed. The childhood photos were there, but several had been removed from albums. Personal documents were present, but disorganized, as if hastily searched. As we prepared to leave, Martha finally spoke directly to me. "You think you've won something here. You've destroyed a family that loved you." "No," I said quietly. "I've exposed a criminal enterprise that preyed on family love." "Your mother would be ashamed." Eleanor stepped forward then, and Martha actually stepped back. "His mother would be proud. I should know I helped her plan this moment." Martha's face went white. You. You poisoned her mind against us. No, you poisoned her life with your greed and manipulation. All I did was help her protect her daughters from beyond the grave. We left with our boxes of memories and one precious key. In the driveway, I took one last look at the house where I'd grown up, where my mother had withered, where my father had built his empire of lies. "I'll never coming back here," I said. "Good," Eleanor replied. "Some doors should close forever." The safety deposit box would wait until Monday. Banks were closed weekends. But we had the key, we had each other, and we had the truth. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. "Saw the news about the federal investigation. My roommate says you're a badass for taking down a crime family. I told her you're just my big sister. Love you." I smiled through tears. Just her big sister. It was the best title I'd ever carried. Monday morning at First National Bank felt like approaching a fortress. Eleanor, Rebecca, and I sat in the parking lot reviewing our documentation one final time. The safety deposit box key felt heavy in my pocket. Not just metal, but the weight of my mother's last gift. "Remember," Rebecca cautioned, "whatever's in there might be emotionally difficult. Your mother prepared this while dying. She knew she was leaving you girls to face this alone." "Not alone," Eleanor corrected firmly. "Never alone again." The bank manager met us personally, having been briefed on the situation. Federal investigators had already been there freezing accounts connected to my father. Our visit was expected, documented, and would be recorded for legal purposes. Box 472. The manager confirmed, leading us to the vault. Paid through 2030 joint access granted to Alvera and Madison, with Eleanor Morrison as executor, if both are unavailable. The vault was silent except for our footsteps, row upon row of metal boxes holding secrets, but none as precious as what my mother had hidden for us. The box was larger than I'd expected. Inside, organized with the meticulous care of someone who knew time was running out, were folders, envelopes, and small packages. The first folder was labeled Evidence in my mother's handwriting. It contained originals of every document she'd copied, loan applications with forged signatures, bank statements showing theft patterns, even photographs of my father with known criminal associates at the casino. "This is a prosecutor's dream," Rebecca whispered, photographing each page for our records. The second folder hurt more. My girls. Inside were letters, one for each birthday my mother knew she'd miss. They went up to our 40th birthdays, each sealed with the year written on front. "She wrote these while going through chemo," Eleanor said softly. "I remember. She said it was the only way she could guarantee being part of your futures." I traced my fingers over my name in her handwriting, but didn't open any letters. Not here, not now. Those required privacy and probably boxes of tissues. The third section made Rebecca gasp. Financial documents, not evidence of crimes, but of hidden assets. Bonds purchased in our names when we were babies. A separate life insurance policy my father never knew about. Investment accounts with Eleanor as trustee. "How much?" I asked, though the numbers were swimming before my eyes. Eleanor calculated quickly. Between everything, about $400,000 per daughter. She liquidated everything she could hide, converted it to stable investments. It's been growing for 13 years. $400,000. My mother, while dying, while being gaslit and controlled, had somehow built us each a freedom fund that dwarfed what my father had stolen. "There's more," Eleanor noted, pulling out a sealed envelope marked legal. Inside was a will, properly witnessed, notarized, filed with the state that left everything to Madison and me, explicitly disinheriting my father due to financial malfeasance and abuse. But more importantly, there was a detailed affidavit sworn before a judge documenting decades of crimes. "She built our entire case," Rebecca marveled. "Every crime we've discovered, she documented first. This affidavit alone could convict him." The final item in the box was a small jewelry box. Inside were my grandmother's wedding rings, Not my father's mother, but my maternal grandmother I'd never met. A note explained, "She died when I was 16. These are the only things of hers I saved from foster care. They belong to women who choose freedom over fear." I slipped the rings onto my right hand, feeling generations of strength flow through them. We spent 3 hours in that bank vault cataloging everything, making copies, securing originals. By the time we emerged, I felt transformed. My mother hadn't been the broken victim I'd remembered. She'd been a strategist playing a long game she knew she wouldn't live to see finished. The news that greeted us outside the bank was explosive. Jennifer's whistleblowing had triggered a cascade of discoveries. The FBI had raided 6 properties that morning, including the family home. Aunt Martha had been arrested for obstruction after trying to destroy documents. They found a burn barrel in the backyard, Rebecca read from her phone, still smoking when agents arrived. She live-streamed herself crying about government persecution while actively destroying evidence. My phone rang Madison, breathless with excitement. "Alvera, I just got a call from a prosecutor. They want me to testify about the identity theft. They said with the evidence, they found Dad's looking at 20 years minimum." 20 years. He'd stolen decades from multiple victims. It seemed like poetic justice. "There's something else," Madison continued. "Remember the car loan he took out in my name? They found the car. He'd been hiding it at Uncle Carl's shop, planning to sell it overseas. It's evidence now, but once the case is over, they'll release it to me to sell. The prosecutor says I can probably get enough to cover my remaining school expenses." Even his crimes were becoming our stepping stones to freedom. The legal machinery moved faster than anyone expected. By Wednesday, the scope of the investigation had expanded to include dozens of victims across 3 states. My father, it turned out, had franchised his methods, teaching other family members how to exploit their children's credit in exchange for a cut. I sat in the federal prosecutor's office providing testimony that would become part of a RICO case. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Dana Chen, treated me with a mixture of professional interest and personal sympathy. "You understand," she said carefully, "that your testimony will put multiple family members in prison, not just your father, but aunts, uncles, cousins, who participated." "I understand." "And you're prepared for the family backlash. These cases can get ugly." I thought about the prayer circle, the psychiatric evaluator, the systematic destruction of my mother's spirit. "It's already ugly. At least now it's ugly with a purpose." She smiled grimly. "Good answer. Now let's talk about the murder allegations." My blood went cold. Murder. Your Uncle Stephen, your cousin Michael, who died in 2018, 3 other family members over the past 20 years, all of whom had threatened to expose the fraud ring. All died in accidents or sudden illnesses after confronting your father. The room spun. I'd known my father was a criminal, but a murderer. "We can't prove anything yet," Dana admitted, "but the patterns are suspicious. Your mother's cancer diagnosis coming immediately after she tried to file charges. Your grandfather's convenient heart problems during legal proceedings. At minimum, we're looking at a pattern of suspicious deaths that benefited the fraud ring." I provided what information I could, but my mind was reeling. How many people had died for threatening this criminal empire? How close had Madison and I come to being statistics? Thursday brought unexpected allies. Cousins who'd been silent started reaching out, sharing their own stories of exploitation. Great-Aunt Patricia flew in from Arizona with boxes of documents she'd been hiding for years. Even Uncle Carl, initially resistant, agreed to testify in exchange for immunity. "I just wanted to work on cars," he told me during a break in his deposition. But Marcus made it clear, participate or lose everything. I've been laundering money through my shop for a decade. I'm not proud, but I was terrified. The family narrative was crumbling. The united front my father had cultivated through fear was breaking apart as people realized the investigators offered something more powerful than family loyalty, legal protection. Friday's family group chat explosion was predictable. Aunt Martha, out on bail, sent a final message before the prosecutor advised everyone to cease contact. "You've destroyed us. Generations of family unity shattered for money. I hope you're satisfied, Alvera. You've killed your father as surely as if you'd pulled a trigger." But other messages came privately. "Thank you for being brave enough to do what I couldn't. Cousin Robert, my credit has been ruined for years. I thought I was alone. Second cousin Lisa. Your mother would be so proud. She talked about you girls, constantly said you'd save each other. Great Aunt Patricia." That evening, I sat in Eleanor's hotel suite reviewing the week's developments. Multiple arrests, frozen assets totaling millions, victims coming forward from across the country. The local crime story had become national news. Family fraud ring exposed by daughter's courage. "How do you feel?" Eleanor asked, pouring tea with elegant precision. "Exhausted, vindicated, guilty, proud, terrified," I laughed shakily. "Everything at once." "That's normal. You're grieving the family you thought you had while celebrating the freedom you've earned. It's complex." My phone rang. Madison, calling for our nightly check-in. Guess what?" she said, joy evident in her voice. "I sold my first real commission today. A book cover for an actual publisher. They loved my portfolio piece about breaking free from family trauma." "That's amazing." "It pays enough to cover next semester's supplies." And Alvera, "The publisher wants to see more work. They're interested in a graphic novel about our story. Would you be okay with that?" Our story transformed into art, our trauma becoming testimony that might help others. "I'd be honored," I told her. After we hung up, Eleanor raised her teacup in a toast. "To your mother's grand design, to Madison's art, to your courage, to justice served cold but thoroughly." We clinked cups as my phone lit up with a notification. The prosecutor had filed charges, 47 counts of fraud, 23 counts of identity theft, 12 counts of money laundering, and an investigation ongoing into potential murder charges. My father, who demanded 100% of my salary, who'd built an empire on family exploitation, would spend the rest of his life paying for his crimes. The legal battle was far from over. There would be trials, testimony, and undoubtedly more family drama. But sitting in that hotel suite, wearing my grandmother's rings, carrying my mother's evidence, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. The war wasn't won yet, but the tide had turned. And for the first time since that text, demanding my salary, I could see a future where Madison and I were truly free. Monday morning arrived with the kind of brilliant sunshine that felt like mockery. I sat in my home office, really just a corner of my apartment with a desk and laptop, trying to focus on marketing strategies, while my phone buzzed incessantly with updates from the investigation. The company had been patient, supportive even, but I knew there were limits. Dr. Kim's crisis management had minimized the damage, but whispers still followed me through virtual meetings. The prayer circle video had gone viral enough that clients had asked questions. Professional reputation once damaged was hard to rebuild. My laptop chimed with a video call request. Mr. Davidson's face appeared, and my stomach dropped at his expression. "Alvera, we need to discuss your transition back to the office. Can you come in this afternoon?" Of course, I managed, though dread pooled in my chest. "Bring Rebecca if you'd like. This is complicated." After he hung up, I stared at my reflection in the black screen. Dark circles, weight loss, a general air of someone who'd been fighting for survival, rather than climbing the corporate ladder. Not exactly marketing director material. Rebecca met me in the company lobby at 2 p.m., her expression carefully neutral. "Whatever happens, we have options," she reminded me. "The company can't retaliate against you for being a crime victim." "But they can decide I'm too much drama for a leadership position," I countered. The elevator ride felt endless. When we reached the executive conference room, my heart sank further. Not just Mr. Davidson and Ms. Patterson, the CEO Richard Blackstone sat at the head of the table, along with Dr. Kim and two people I didn't recognize. "Alvera, please sit," Mr. Blackstone said. His tone was unreadable. I'd only met him twice before, both times at company-wide events where he'd seemed like a distant corporate deity. "I'll be direct," he continued once we were seated. "Your situation has created unprecedented challenges for our company. We've had 3 clients express concerns. 2 others have asked if their accounts will be transitioning to more stable leadership." The words hit like physical blows, each one diminishing the promotion I'd worked so hard to earn. "However," he continued, and I caught the slight emphasis, "we've also had something else happen. Do you know who Martha Blackstone is?" I shook my head, confused by the change in direction. "My mother?" he said simply. "She's 93 years old, sharp as a tack, and she called me last week after seeing your story in the news. Would you like to know what she said?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. She said, "Richard, I escaped a family like that in 1951. Took me 30 years to rebuild my life after they destroyed my credit and reputation. If you punish that girl for fighting back, I'll disown you and donate your inheritance to a women's shelter." The room was silent except for my sharp intake of breath. Mr. Blackstone smiled slightly. "My mother doesn't make idle threats. She also mentioned that companies that stand by employees during personal crises see a 40% increase in overall loyalty and productivity. She sent me studies." "Or, sir, He held up a hand. "Let me finish. What I see when I look at your situation is not instability or drama. I see someone who identified a massive fraud operation and had the courage to expose it despite enormous personal cost. Those are exactly the qualities we want in leadership." Ms. Patterson slid a document across the table. "This is a revised offer for your director position. It includes the hardship compensation Sandra mentioned, unauthorized, by the way, but accurate. We're also adding a personal security consultation and flexible work arrangements while you deal with legal proceedings." I read the numbers twice, certain I was misunderstanding. The salary was 20% higher than the original offer. The benefits included counseling services, legal support, and a signing bonus that would cover my immediate debt consolidation needs. "Why?" I asked, genuinely bewildered. "Because character matters," Mr. Blackstone said, "and because Dr. Kim here has convinced me that your experience could benefit our entire organization." Dr. Kim leaned forward. "I've proposed a new initiative corporate response to employee domestic crises. Financial abuse, stalking, family harassment. Your case has shown us gaps in our support systems. We'd like you to help design better ones. In addition to my marketing director duties, as part of them," Mr. Davidson clarified, "we're expanding the role to include internal advocacy. Better support systems mean better retention, which means better marketing about our company culture." I glanced at Rebecca, who looked as stunned as I felt. This wasn't just keeping my job, this was transformation of crisis into opportunity. "There is one more thing," Mr. Blackstone said, his tone shifting. "We've had an unusual request. A gallery owner named Patricia Chen wants to sponsor an art exhibition here. Her wife is on our board, Sarah Chen." I recognized the name from Madison's excited texts, the gallery owner who'd noticed her work who happened to be married to someone on my company's board. "The exhibition would feature artists who've overcome family trauma," he continued. "Your sister has been invited to showcase her work. Patricia thought hosting it here where your story began in many ways would be powerful. Full circle." Tears threatened, but I held them back. Madison's art in my workplace, our story transformed from shame to strength. I don't know what to say. "Say yes." Mr. Blackstone smiled. "To all of it. Let us be the company that doesn't just weather employee crises, but transforms them into catalysts for positive change." I signed the papers with hands that barely shook. Rebecca squeezed my shoulder as we finalized detailed start date transition plans, the framework for the new advocacy program. As we prepared to leave, one of the unknown people finally spoke. "Ms. Morrison, I'm Janet Walsh from the Times. I'm here with Mr. Blackstone's permission to document this response to employee crisis. Would you be willing to be interviewed anonymously if preferred?" I thought about all the victims, still silent, still trapped in their family fraud rings. Not anonymously, use my name. Let them know survival is possible. The interview that followed was exhausting but cathartic. I told the truth, not just about the fraud, but about the years of grooming that made it possible, the systematic destruction of boundaries, the way love became leverage. "What would you tell someone in a similar situation?" Janet asked near the end. "Document everything. Trust your instincts, and remember the people who truly love you won't require you to destroy yourself for their benefit." By evening, I was back in my apartment, overwhelmed by the day's reversal. My phone rang Madison, calling earlier than usual. "Alvera, did you see the gallery owner, Patricia? She wants to mentor me, and there's gonna be an exhibition at your company. I just found out today. I'm so proud of you." She saw the piece I did about the prayer circle, said it captured something about public manipulation she'd never seen visualized before. She wants me to do a whole series. We talked for an hour about her art, her classes, her new life in Portland. She sounded like what she was, a 19-year-old college student excited about her future, not a survivor of systematic abuse. Eleanor called next, having heard about the workplace development through her networks. "Your mother always said you'd find your people. She'd be thrilled to know your company recognized your worth." I still can't quite believe it. Believe it, and prepare yourself. This kind of support tends to embolden other victims. Your public stand is creating ripples. She was right. By Tuesday morning, my inbox was full. Former employees from my father's construction company reaching out with their own stories of wage theft. Distant relatives admitting they'd been victimized but were too ashamed to speak up. Even strangers who'd seen the news wanting to share their experiences with family financial abuse. Dr. Kim and I met Wednesday to begin developing the Employee Crisis Response Program. She'd brought in experts, lawyers specializing in domestic abuse, financial counselors who understood coercive control, security consultants who'd worked with stalking victims. "Your case is textbook in many ways," Dr. Kim explained, "but it's also unique in its scope. We're using it as a teaching tool with your permission. Whatever helps others." Thursday brought a surprise visitor to the office. Jennifer, my cousin, who turned whistleblower, stood in the lobby looking professional but nervous. "Can we talk?" she asked. "I have a job interview here next week." Mr. Davidson reached out after hearing about my financial forensics background. The company that was supporting me was also extending opportunities to other family victims. The ripple effect Eleanor had predicted was becoming a wave. "He said you recommended me," Jennifer continued, "that you told him I had skills despite my past." "You do have skills. You helped build a criminal enterprise. Now you can help companies protect against them." We had coffee in the break room while she told me about the ongoing investigation. More family members had been arrested. The asset forfeiture was proceeding, millions in hidden accounts discovered through her documentation. "They found the murder evidence," she said quietly. "Not enough to prosecute yet, but enough to expand the investigation. Uncle Stephen's accident. There was a large insurance policy my father collected on. Same with cousin Michael." My coffee turned to acid in my stomach. "He killed them for money." "Allegedly, but the patterns are damning. Every family member who threatened exposure died within 6 months, and he benefited financially each time, including my mother." Jennifer's silence was answer enough. Friday's company-wide meeting was my official reintroduction as marketing director. Mr. Blackstone himself presented me, framing my experience as evidence of the company's values in action. "We don't abandon our people in crisis," he said to the assembled staff. "We stand with them, support them, and learn from their experiences to better protect everyone." The applause was genuine warm. Co-workers who'd seemed distant during the prayer circle drama approached with congratulations and their own stories. Sandra from accounting hugged me tight, whispering, "My ex-husband did something similar. Seeing you fight gave me courage to check my credit. Found 3 cards I didn't know about." By day's end, 5 employees had approached HR about their own domestic crises. The program we were building was already needed. That weekend, I moved into a new apartment, one my father didn't know the address to, in a building with excellent security. Eleanor helped me unpack, bringing housewarming gifts that included a state-of-the-art security system. "Overkill?" I asked. "Prudent," she corrected. "Your father is facing life in prison. Desperate people do desperate things." But for the first time in weeks, I slept soundly. Monday would bring new challenges, the actual work of being marketing director, while building an advocacy program and testifying in ongoing investigations. But it would also bring purpose beyond survival. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison, started the new series. First piece is titled, "She Kept 100% of Her Salary. Patricia Loves It." I smiled, looking around my new apartment, small, but mine, furnished with my choices paid for with my money. The war with my family wasn't over, but I'd already won the most important battle. I'd kept 100% of my salary and gained something worth far more, a life that belonged entirely to me. Madison arrived on a red-eye flight Saturday morning, her portfolio case and a small backpack her only luggage. I met her at the airport, and we held each other for a long moment in the arrivals area, neither of us speaking. She'd lost weight, her face showing the strain of the past weeks, despite her excitement about school. "You look tired," we said simultaneously, then laughed, the first genuine laughter we'd shared in person since this nightmare began. "The prosecutor wants to prep me for testimony," she explained as we drove to my new apartment. "And Patricia thought I should see the exhibition space at your company, but honestly, I just needed to see you." My apartment suddenly felt less empty with Madison in it. She moved through the space with an artist's eye, noting the light, the angles, already envisioning where she might work if she visited again. "It feels safe here," she said finally, and I knew she meant more than the security system. We spent Saturday afternoon at Rebecca's office preparing for Madison's upcoming testimony. My sister, always the quiet one, had documented things I'd never known about: screenshots of our father accessing her student portal, photos of credit cards that arrived in her name, recordings of him coaching her to lie about our mother's mental state. "I started documenting when I was 14, she admitted. "After I saw what he did to Mom, I knew I'd need evidence someday." 14. While I'd been trying to hold our family together, she'd been preparing to escape it. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Because you still believed it could get better. You needed that hope to survive. I needed the truth to survive. We each did what we had to." Sunday brought an unexpected reunion. Jennifer arrived at my apartment with Great-Aunt Patricia, both carrying boxes of additional evidence. Patricia, at 78, looked like an older version of our mother, sharp-eyed, determined, carrying herself like someone who'd fought battles and won. "Your mother sent me these before she died," Patricia explained, setting down a box of letters and photographs. "Said to keep them safe until her girls were ready. I think you're ready now." The letters were from family members, going back generations, all detailing financial abuse, control theft. Our great-grandmother had written about her husband stealing her inheritance. Our grandmother had documented her son's exploitation of her dementia. "This goes back to the 1940s, Madison breathed, horrified. "At least," Patricia confirmed, "every generation the men in this family found ways to exploit the women and children. Your mother and I used to talk about it. She called it the family curse." "Not a curse," I said firmly, "a choice. They chose to be predators." We spent the day building a comprehensive timeline. Jennifer's financial expertise, Patricia's historical knowledge, Madison's artistic documentation, and my recent experiences created a picture of systematic criminal behavior spanning nearly a century. "This is bigger than just our father," Jennifer said, staring at the wall where we'd pinned up documents. This is organized crime embedded in family structure. Which is why it ends with us, Madison said quietly. We're the generation that says no more. Monday morning, we invaded Rebecca's conference room with our evidence. She took one look at our timeline and called in additional help: a forensic accountant, a genealogist who specialized in financial crimes, and 2 more attorneys. This is unprecedented, she said after some 3 hours of review. We're not just talking about prosecuting individuals anymore. This could lead to policy changes, new laws about family financial abuse. The FBI agent assigned to our case arrived that afternoon. Agent Sarah Thompson was younger than I'd expected, with kind eyes that had seen too much. Your documentation is exceptional, she said after reviewing everything. Most family fraud cases fail because victims can't bear to keep evidence against loved ones. You've done the opposite. We learned from our mother, Madison said simply. Agent Thompson smiled sadly. I've seen your mother's video testimony. She was a remarkable woman. I think she'd be proud of what you're accomplishing. Tuesday's meeting at my company was surreal. Madison, Patricia, and I toured the gallery space where her exhibition would be held. Patricia Chen, no relation to Rebecca, walked us through her vision, a powerful showcase of art born from trauma with Madison's work as a centerpiece. Your piece about the prayer circle, Patricia told Madison, it captures something universal about public manipulation. I've had collectors asking if it's for sale before it's even displayed. Madison glanced at me. I wasn't planning to sell that one. I thought maybe Alvera should have it. No, I said immediately. Sell it. Use the money for your future. I have something better than a painting. I have you free and thriving. Mr. Blackstone joined us briefly, sharing more of his mother's story. She saved every document too, he said, built her case over years while pretending compliance. Sound familiar? By Wednesday, Madison was deep in testimony preparation while I returned to actual marketing work. The normalcy of strategic planning and campaign development felt bizarre after weeks of crisis, but also healing. This was who I'd been before the chaos, a professional with skills that had nothing to do with family trauma. My team welcomed me warmly, and I discovered Dr. Kim had done extensive work in my absence. The Employee Crisis Program was already functioning with 2 employees receiving support for their own situations. You started something important, Sandra told me during a coffee break. My sister called yesterday. She's finally leaving her financially abusive husband because she saw it was possible to survive. The ripple effect continued expanding. By Thursday, 3 major newspapers had picked up the story, focusing not on the sensational family drama, but on the larger issue of generational financial abuse. Expert commentators discussed how family structures could hide criminal enterprises. Legislators mentioned potential bills to address gaps in the system. Madison's testimony on Friday was brutal. I sat in the gallery, Eleanor on one side and Patricia on the other, as my baby sister detailed years of manipulation and theft. She spoke clearly, consulting her documentation, never wavering despite our father's attempts to intimidate her with glares from the defendant's table. He told me I owed him for being born, she said at one point, that my existence was a debt I'd spend my lifetime repaying. I believed him until I was 16. What changed when you were 16? The prosecutor asked. I saw him destroy my mother while she was dying. I realized that no amount of repayment would ever be enough. He'd take until there was nothing left, then blame us for having nothing more to give. The judge had to call a recess when several jury members became visibly emotional. During the break, our father's attorney approached Rebecca. He wants to make a deal, the attorney said quietly. Full confession in exchange for a reduced sentence. 20 years instead of life. No deals, I said before Rebecca could respond. He confesses and takes the full consequences, or we go to trial on everything, including the murder investigations. The attorney paled. You'd pursue that your own father... He pursued destroying his own family for profit. Yes, I'll pursue justice for everyone he hurt. That evening, back at my apartment, Madison and I cooked dinner together, something we'd rarely done in our childhood home where meals were tense obligations rather than shared pleasures. I'm proud of you, I told her as we chopped vegetables. Your testimony was perfect. I practiced in the mirror for weeks, she admitted, kept imagining Mom beside me giving me strength. Maybe she was. We ate quietly, processing the week's intensity. Tomorrow, Madison would fly back to Portland, back to her new life. The trial would continue without her. Jennifer would testify next, then Patricia, then dozens of other victims who'd found courage in our stand. I've been thinking, Madison said eventually, about the trust fund. I want to use part of mine to start a foundation. Scholarships for people escaping financial abuse. Mom would have liked that. She would have loved it. I'll contribute too. And the family money, when they seize his hidden assets. I'd been thinking about that too. Millions stolen over generations, soon to be recovered and distributed to victims. We donate our portion, I said. Every penny beyond what was directly stolen from us. Let it help other families break their cycles. Madison smiled, the first truly peaceful smile I'd seen from her in years. So we really are ending it. The family tradition of exploitation stops with us. Replaced with a tradition of liberation. We spent her last night planning the foundation, the exhibition, our separate but connected futures. She showed me new pieces she was working on, including one that made me cry, two sisters standing back to back, facing different directions, but clearly protecting each other, titled, We Both Kept 100%. Saturday morning's airport goodbye was bittersweet. Madison was eager to return to school, to her art, to the life she was building, but leaving felt wrong after finding each other again as allies rather than just survivors. It's not goodbye, she reminded me, reading my expression. We have Thanksgiving, Christmas, the exhibition, the rest of our lives. The rest of our lives, I repeated, marveling at the phrase. For so long I couldn't imagine beyond the next crisis. Now we had futures stretching ahead, unlimited by family theft or obligation. Hey, Alvera, Madison called just before entering security. Thank you for getting me out, for fighting, for showing me it was possible. Thank you for documenting everything, for being brave enough to hide the truth until we could use it, for becoming the artist Mom knew you could be. She waved once more and disappeared into the security line. I stood watching until I couldn't see her anymore, then made my way back to my car. The drive home was quiet, but not lonely. In my apartment waited work I'd chosen, a life I'd built, a future I'd claimed. On my phone were messages from other survivors finding their voices. In Portland, my sister was painting our story into something beautiful. We'd united not in shared victimhood, but in mutual liberation. The family that had tried to consume us had instead forged us into something unbreakable, sisters who'd learned that love doesn't require sacrifice, just courage. The criminal trial would continue. The financial recovery would take years. The emotional healing might take a lifetime, but Madison and I had already won the only victory that mattered. We'd saved each other. The threatening notes started appearing on Tuesday. The first was tucked under my apartment door, a simple white envelope with my name written in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside, typed on plain paper, "You think you're safe, family always finds family." Building security reviewed the footage but saw nothing useful. Whoever delivered it had avoided cameras with practiced ease. I filed a police report adding to my growing collection, but the detective's expression said what we both knew, until someone made a physical move. Notes were just paper. Wednesday brought escalation. My car windshield bore a photograph me leaving work the previous day, taken from across the street. A red X marked my face. The back read, 48 hours to drop all charges. This time, I called Agent Thompson directly. The FBI took threats against witnesses seriously, especially when organized crime was involved. We're increasing surveillance, she assured me. Have you noticed anyone following you? I hadn't, but Madison had. She called that evening, voice shaking. There was a man at the coffee shop near campus, same one from yesterday and the day before. He left when I tried to take his picture. The FBI moved fast. Within hours, Madison had protection in Portland while agents investigated the coffee shop stranger. But the damage was done, the safety we'd fought for was evaporating. Thursday morning shattered any remaining illusions of security. I arrived at work to find my designated parking spot occupied by a burned car, not mine thankfully, but the message was clear. The vehicle was still smoldering when police arrived. "This is escalating quickly," Rebecca said, meeting me in the company's security office. "We need to consider protective custody." "I can't hide. I have worked the trial a life to live." "You can't testify if you're dead," she said bluntly. The security footage of the parking lot was more useful this time. A woman mid-40s, baseball cap pulled low but face partially visible, had driven the car in at 3 a.m. She doused it with accelerant and lit it with casual efficiency before walking away. "I don't recognize her," I said, studying the image. But Jennifer did. She arrived within an hour of my call, took one look at the footage, and went pale. "That's Diane Walsh. She's connected to Dad's other life." Other life. Jennifer glanced at the officers present. "Can we talk privately first?" In a small conference room, Jennifer revealed another layer of the nightmare. Dad has another family in Nevada, has for 15 years. Diane is his girlfriend there. She thinks they're married. They have 2 kids together. The floor seemed to tilt. Another family, more victims. "She's in deep with his gambling connections," Jennifer continued. "Owes money to people who don't accept bankruptcy as payment. If Dad goes to prison, she's exposed. The people they owe will come collecting. So she's trying to intimidate me into dropping charges or eliminate you entirely. Diane's got a record assault arson fraud. Dad always said she was insurance, someone who'd do what family wouldn't." Agent Thompson absorbed this information with professional calm. "We'll bring her in for the arson, but this suggests a broader network of threat. Who else might move against you?" The list Jennifer provided was terrifying. Gambling associates who'd lose money, laundering opportunities. Other families involved in similar schemes who feared exposure. Business partners in the construction company who'd been skimming for years. "Your father built an ecosystem of crime," Agent Thompson summarized. "Taking him down threatens dozens of income streams." By Friday, my life had transformed into something from a thriller novel. FBI agents shadowed my movements. My apartment building had unmarked cars stationed outside. Madison's dorm was under surveillance. Even Eleanor had accepted protection after someone left a dead cat on her hotel room door. The stress was wearing on everyone. Madison's roommate had requested a transfer. My marketing team was working around my erratic schedule. The normalcy I'd fought for was crumbling under the weight of protective measures. Saturday brought the confrontation we'd been expecting. I was in my apartment, agents stationed outside when the intercom buzzed. The security desk's voice was tense. "Ms. Morrison, there's a woman here claiming to be your stepmother. She says it's urgent." Diane Walsh. The woman who'd burned a car to send a message was in my building's lobby. "Don't let her up," I instructed, already calling Agent Thompson. But Diane had come prepared. By the time agents reached the lobby, she'd produced documents, a marriage certificate forged, we later learned, and custody papers for her children. She played the desperate mother card, perfectly garnering sympathy from residents who didn't know the full story. "I just want to talk to her," Diane wailed loudly. "She's destroying my children's lives. Their father made mistakes, but why punish babies?" The agents couldn't arrest her for being in a public lobby, and she hadn't made explicit threats. She'd positioned herself perfectly, the suffering second wife pleading for mercy. I watched it all on the security monitor, Rebecca beside me. "She's good," Rebecca admitted grudgingly, "playing the victim while making you look heartless." "What do I do?" "Nothing. Let her perform. Every minute she's here is more footage of harassment. Diane's performance lasted 2 hours. She cycled through tears, anger, and desperation, always staying just within legal bounds. But eventually, she slipped. Those children upstairs don't understand what happens to families who cross certain people, she said to another resident loud enough for cameras. Accidents happen, cars crash, houses burn. Sometimes whole families just disappear. That was enough. Agents moved in, arresting her for making terroristic threats. As they led her away, she locked eyes with the security camera with me and smiled coldly. "You have no idea what you've started," she called out. "He has friends you can't imagine." The arrest made the evening news. Second family of accused crime boss threatens witness, ran beneath footage of Diane being placed in a police car. My phone exploded with messages, some supportive, others warning me to be careful. But it was Madison's call that chilled me most. "Alvera, the man at the coffee shop, he's gone, but my studio was broken into, nothing stolen, but they left something." "Well, what?" Photos of Mom, recent ones from the hospital during her last days. Photos we don't have, and a note, "She couldn't protect you then. No one can protect you now." The cruelty of it, using our mother's death as a weapon, sparked rage that cut through my fear. They'd crossed a line from intimidation to psychological warfare. "Pack what you need," I told Madison. "You're taking a leave of absence and coming here. We'll figure out school later." I can't let them chase me from my life. This isn't retreat, it's regrouping. Please. She agreed reluctantly. While she prepared to leave Portland, I called a war council. Eleanor, Rebecca, Jennifer, Patricia, Agent Thompson. Everyone who'd become our allies gathered in Rebecca's office Sunday morning. "They're trying to break us before the trial," I said. "Make us too afraid to testify. We need to go on offense." "What do you have in mind?" Agent Thompson asked. "Full exposure. Every crime, every connection, every dirty secret. If they want war, we give them scorched earth." Patricia smiled grimly. "Your mother said something similar once, right before she started documenting everything." Jennifer pulled out her laptop. "I've been holding back some information. Figured it was insurance. But if we're burning it all down..." She opened encrypted files. "Diane Walsh isn't just Dad's girlfriend, she's his business partner. They run drugs through the construction sites, launder money through the casino. I have recordings." "From when?" Rebecca asked. "From when I was helping them. I was terrified, but I was also smart. Every meeting, every transaction, every threat, I recorded it all." "That's evidence of your own crimes," Eleanor pointed out. "I know, but I'm done protecting myself at the expense of justice. Use it all." Agent Thompson was already making calls. Within hours, the investigation had expanded again. DEA joined the task force. State police added resources. What had started as family fraud had revealed itself as a multi-state criminal enterprise. Madison arrived Monday evening exhausted but safe. We sat in my apartment surrounded by FBI protection and tried to process how our lives had transformed. "Remember when you just wanted them to stop taking your salary?" she asked with dark humor. "Now we're in witness protection from drug dealers." Bit of an escalation. But beneath the gallows, humor was determination. They'd threatened us, stalked us, tried to break us with psychological warfare. They'd failed to understand the strength our mother had built in us, not through words, but through example. "We're gonna win," Madison said quietly. "Not just the trial, everything. They're going to lose everything." "How are you so sure?" She pulled out her phone, showing me a message from Patricia Chen. "The exhibition is going viral. Pre-sales are through the roof. My story, our story is resonating. Every threat they make just proves why this matters." She was right. The danger had backfired. Public support was growing. Legislators were fast-tracking bills about family financial abuse. Other survivors were finding courage to report their own situations. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound could be a threat. Every shadow could hide danger. But mixed with the fear was something stronger: purpose. We weren't just saving ourselves anymore. We were burning down a system that had operated in shadows for generations. The next morning brought news that Diane Walsh was being held without bail. She'd been caught on recorded calls arranging more violence. Her children, my father's other victims, had been placed in protective custody. 2 more kids he can't destroy, Madison said when we heard. The threats didn't stop entirely. Notes still appeared. Strange cars still followed, but now they felt like desperate moves from a collapsing empire rather than coordinated attacks from a position of strength. Wednesday's team meeting at work was surreal. We discussed marketing strategies while I had an FBI agent stationed outside the conference room. My colleagues adapted with surprising grace. So we're thinking the new campaign should emphasize stability and trust. One suggested, then paused. Sorry, is that insensitive given that I'm testifying against a crime family? I laughed, actually laughed. No, stability and trust sound perfect, aspirational even. The ability to find humor in the darkness, another gift from our mother, who'd faced death with grace and strategic planning, rather than despair. Thursday brought a breakthrough. One of Diane's associates, arrested in the broader sweep, flipped immediately. He provided details about planned attacks, naming others involved. The FBI moved fast, arresting 6 more people before they could act. The network is collapsing, Agent Thompson told me. Your father's empire was built on fear and mutual blackmail. Once people started talking, everyone rushed to make deals. By week's end, the immediate threats had diminished. Madison was painting again, working on pieces for the exhibition from my apartment. I was back to full-time marketing director duties. The trial proceeded with our testimony intact. But the cost was visible. We both jumped at unexpected sounds. Madison triple-checked locks. I varied my routes obsessively, the hypervigilance of prey who'd been hunted. Will we ever feel safe again? Madison asked one evening. I thought about our mother, about the generations of women before us who'd lived with smaller versions of this fear, who'd been trapped not by external threats, but by internalized ones. We'll feel something better than safe, I told her. We'll feel free. The dangerous escalation had been meant to break us. Instead, it had revealed the true scope of what we were fighting and proven we were strong enough to win. The meeting was set for neutral ground, Eleanor's law firm's conference room chosen for its security and gravitas. 2 weeks had passed since the arrest, and the criminal empire my father had built was in ruins. Now came the reckoning. I arrived early, needing time to prepare mentally. The conference room's floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city where I'd grown up, where my mother had withered, where my father had built his web of exploitation. Madison sat beside me, her portfolio case at her feet. She'd insisted on bringing her latest work, visual testimony to survival and transformation. Eleanor flanked my other side, elegant and implacable as always. Rebecca reviewed documents with focused intensity. They'll be here soon, Agent Thompson said, checking her watch. Remember, this is a formal settlement conference. No matter what they say, maintain composure. They included my father, transported from federal holding, his court-appointed attorney, Aunt Martha out on bail, Uncle Carl, who'd turned state's evidence, and surprisingly, Diane Walsh also in custody, but brought as a co-defendant. The door opened at precisely 10 a.m. My father entered, first shackled, but still carrying himself with arrogance. 3 months in federal custody had aged him. His hair was grayer, his face gaunt, but his eyes held the same calculating coldness. He saw me and smiled, that manipulative expression I'd once mistaken for warmth. Alvera, you look tired. This vindictiveness doesn't suit you. I didn't respond. Eleanor had coached me thoroughly. Let them speak. Document everything. Give them nothing. Diane Walsh entered, next orange jumpsuit, replacing her usual flashy clothes. She glared at me with naked hatred before her attorney whispered urgently in her ear. Aunt Martha followed wearing black as if in mourning. I hope you're satisfied, she hissed as she passed. You've destroyed everything. Uncle Carl wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. His immunity deal required full cooperation, and the shame radiated from him in waves. Once everyone was seated, the federal prosecutor Dana Chen took control. We're here to discuss potential plea arrangements and asset forfeiture. Mr. Morrison, your attorney has indicated you wish to make a statement. My father's lawyer, a harried public defender, nodded. My client wishes to address his daughters directly. Absolutely not, Rebecca interjected. Any communication goes through counsel. Please, my father said, and for a moment his voice cracked. I need them to understand. I need to explain. I found myself nodding despite Rebecca's warning look. Maybe I needed to hear it too, the justification, the reasoning that had destroyed so many lives. 5 minutes, Dana Chen allowed, supervised and recorded. My father focused on me, ignoring Madison entirely, still playing favorites even now. Everything I did was for family, he began. You don't understand the pressure, the debts I inherited. My father left us nothing but obligations. The gambling, the loans, I was trying to multiply money to save us all. By stealing from your children, the words escaped before I could stop them. His face hardened. By investing in the family's future. You were always so selfish, Alvera. Good grades for yourself. College for yourself. That promotion for yourself. When was it ever about us? The gaslighting was breathtaking even now. I'd sacrificed everything for family, and he was painting me as selfish. Madison spoke for the first time, her voice steady. What about Mom was killing her for the family too? Silence fell like a hammer. Even the attorneys seemed to hold their breath. I didn't kill your mother, he said, but something flickered in his eyes. No, Madison continued. You just drove her to despair while she was fighting cancer. You stole her hope, her money, her peace. That's murder by another name. Diane Walsh laughed bitterly. Tell them about Stephanie. Tell them about Marcus Jr. and Bella, your other children who you've destroyed with this mess. The revelation of half-siblings' children raised in shadow should have been shocking, but nothing surprised me anymore. Those children are victims too, I said quietly. We'll ensure they're provided for from the seized assets. Generous of you, my father snarled, deciding who gets what of my money. It was never your money, Eleanor interjected coolly. It was stolen from your parents, your siblings, your children. The court will ensure it returns to victims. Dana Chen resumed control. Let's discuss facts. Mr. Morrison, you're facing 247 federal charges. The evidence is overwhelming. Trial will result in life imprisonment. However, if you provide full cooperation regarding the murder investigations... I want immunity, he interrupted. The room erupted. His attorney tried to quiet him, but my father was beyond reasoning. Immunity for everything past, present, future. I'll give you names, dates, methods, but I walk free. That's not how this works, Dana said patiently. You have no leverage. We have financial records, witness testimony, co-conspirators who've already confessed. You have nothing on the murders, he said smugly, circumstantial at best, but I can give you proof, where bodies are buried literally, but only for full immunity. My stomach turned. Bodies, plural. Jennifer, who'd been silent until now, stood slowly. I have recordings of you discussing Uncle Stephen's brake lines, of the pills you put in Cousin Michael's drink, of the insurance policies you took out weeks before their accidents. She pulled out a hard drive, sliding it across the table to Dana. Every murder planned, every method discussed, every dollar collected after. I was your accomplice in financial crimes, but I drew the line at murder, so I recorded everything. The betrayal on my father's face was almost comic. He'd never imagined his protege would turn so completely. You ungrateful... Careful, his attorney warned. Everything you say is being recorded. But my father was beyond caring. The mask had finally completely slipped. You're all ungrateful parasites, he roared, struggling against his shackles. I gave you everything. I protected this family from poverty, from insignificance. Your mother was nothing foster trash who got lucky meeting me. You girls would have been nothing without my ambition. We would have been happy, Madison said quietly. That would have been enough. Her words seemed to break something in him. For just a moment I saw past the monster to the man who might have been before greed and entitlement consumed him. But the moment passed. His face hardened again. 25 years, he said finally. I'll confess to financial crimes only. 25 years eligible for parole in 15. Final offer. Life without parole, Donna countered. For everything, or we go to trial and seek the death penalty for the murders. The negotiation that followed was brutal. Diane Walsh cut her own deal quickly, 15 years for testimony against everyone else. She had no loyalty beyond self-preservation. Aunt Martha wept through her allocution, accepting 5 years for obstruction and accessory charges. I just wanted to keep the family together, she sobbed. I didn't know about the murders. Uncle Carl's immunity held, but the shame would follow him forever. He'd helped launder money, but claimed ignorance of the deeper crimes, a claim Jennifer's recording supported. My father held out until the end, but reality finally penetrated. Life with possibility of parole after 40 years or trial and potential execution. He took the deal. But I have conditions, he said as documents were prepared. You have no grounds for conditions, Dinah reminded him. Not legal ones, personal ones. He looked at Madison and me. I'll sign everything, confess to everything, but I want 5 minutes alone with my daughters. No lawyers, no recording, just family. Absolutely not, Rebecca said immediately. But I found myself considering it. This man had terrorized us, stolen from us, destroyed our mother, yet he was still our father. Maybe I needed to hear what he'd say when all pretense was gone. 2 minutes, I said. Madison chooses whether to stay. Eleanor remains as witness. The lawyers protested, but I held firm. This was our story to end. The room cleared except for the 4 of us. My father sat across from us, shackled hands folded on the table. I loved you both, he said quietly. In my way, everything got twisted, but it started with love. Love doesn't steal, Madison said. Love doesn't terrorize. Love doesn't kill. You're right. For the first time, he seemed diminished, almost human. Your mother understood that. She tried to save you from me. I hated her for it, but she was right. Then why, I asked, why destroy everything? He was quiet for a long moment. Because I could. Because taking felt like power. Because admitting I was wrong felt like death. He laughed bitterly. Now I get actual death, 40 years in a cell. Your mother wins in the end. We win, Madison corrected. We survived you. Yes, he admitted. You did. The 2 minutes felt like hours. As guards prepared to take him away, he spoke one last time. The music box, your mother's hiding spot, I knew, always knew. I left it there because even I couldn't destroy everything she touched. Tell her that when you visit her grave. Tell her she hid one thing I couldn't steal. They led him away then, and I knew it was the last time I'd ever see him. 40 years was a life sentence for a man his age. The father who'd tucked me in as a child, who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd also systematically destroyed everyone who loved him was gone. The aftermath was anticlimactic. Documents signed, assets cataloged for forfeiture victims' compensation funds established. By afternoon, it was over. The empire built on family exploitation had fallen completely. Outside the law firm, Madison and I stood in unexpected sunshine. The city looked different somehow, brighter, full of possibility. What now? She asked. Now we live, I said. Actually live, not just survive. Eleanor joined us, and for a moment 3 generations of women stood together. The godmother, who'd waited patiently to help the sisters who'd fought back the mother who'd orchestrated salvation from beyond death. Your mother would be proud, Eleanor said simply. We know, Madison replied. We can feel it. That evening in my apartment, Madison painted while I worked on the foundation paperwork. We decided on a name, the Catherine Morrison Foundation for Financial Freedom. Our mother's name attached to the help she'd wanted to give. Jennifer called crying with relief and shame in equal measure. Thank you for letting me make it right. Thank you for the second chance. Thank you for the courage to document everything, I replied. We all saved each other. Patricia Chen called next, ecstatic about the exhibition opening. The media coverage has been incredible. We've raised enough in pre-sales to fund 20 scholarships already. Even Uncle Carl reached out texting simply, I'm sorry for all of it. I hope someday you can forgive. Forgiveness would take time. Trust might never return. But the hatred was already fading, replaced by something more powerful: indifference. They'd taken enough of our emotional energy. No more. As midnight approached, Madison finished her painting, a phoenix rising from ashes, but instead of fire, its wings were made of documents, testimony evidence, transformed into freedom. For the exhibition, I asked. For us, she said, for our apartment, to remember. We hung it immediately, not caring about the late hour or proper placement. It belonged here in this space we'd claimed, in this life we'd built from ruins. The war was over, the enemy vanquished, the price paid in full. Now came the harder part: learning to live in peace. 6 months. That's how long it took for the dust to truly settle for life, to find a rhythm that wasn't dictated by crisis. I sat in my office, my real office, not the makeshift home setup, reviewing marketing campaigns that had nothing to do with personal trauma. The Williams account loves the new direction, Sandra said, dropping files on my desk. They specifically mentioned appreciating our company's stance on supporting employees through difficulties. Our crisis had become a selling point. Companies wanted to work with us because we'd proven we stood by our people. My personal nightmare had transformed into professional credibility. Also, Sandra added with a grin, that reporter from the Times is here. The follow-up piece. Right. The 6-month retrospective on the case that had sparked national conversation about family financial abuse. I'd agreed to it because visibility meant protection for me, for Madison, for others still trapped. Janet Walsh, no relation to Diane, sat in the conference room with coffee and genuine warmth. She'd won a journalism award for her coverage of our story. You look different, she observed as I settled across from her, calmer, stronger. Sleep helps, I admitted. Not jumping at every sound helps more. The interview covered familiar ground. Initially, the crimes, the trial, the sentences. My father serving life, Diane Walsh, 15 years. Various family members scattered across minimum security facilities. But Janet pushed deeper. Let's talk about the money, she said. The recovered assets. The number still seemed surreal: $3.7 million, recovered from hidden accounts, real estate, and liquidated businesses. After legal fees and government claims, $2.8 million remained for victim restitution. Madison and I received what was stolen directly from us, I explained, about $60,000 each. The rest went to other victims' family members he'd defrauded over the years. That's remarkably generous. You could have claimed more. We could have, but we wanted freedom, not his money. Every dollar beyond what was ours felt tainted. And the children, his other family? Trust funds were established for all minor children. They'll have college-covered therapy resources, a chance at normal lives. None of them asked to be born into this. Janet nodded, making notes. Tell me about the foundation. The Catherine Morrison Foundation had officially launched 3 months ago. Madison's exhibition had raised initial funds, but the real momentum came from unexpected sources: other survivors who'd found success despite family financial abuse corporations wanting to support the cause, even some reformed family members donating portions of their restitution. We've funded 12 scholarships so far, I said proudly, full rides for young adults escaping financial abuse. We also provide emergency grants, security deposits, car repairs, the immediate needs that keep people trapped. Your mother would be proud. She is proud, I corrected gently. Her presence isn't gone just because she is. The interview shifted to Madison. My sister had become somewhat famous in art circles, the teenager who documented abuse through illustration, whose testimony had been both verbal and visual. She's thriving, I reported. Dean's List gallery representation, and she's illustrating a book about recognizing financial abuse patterns. Oh, and she got a dog. A dog. A rescue. She says they're healing together. We talked about the ripple effects. 3 states had passed laws strengthening protections against family financial abuse. Banks had implemented new protocols for detecting identity theft by relatives. The FBI had created a task force specifically for family-based financial crimes. What about your family? Janet asked carefully. The ones who weren't convicted. It's complicated, I admitted. Some have reached out genuinely remorseful. Others still blame me for destroying the family. We're navigating it case by case. Cousin Jennifer had become a close ally, using her insider knowledge to help other victims document abuse. Great-aunt Patricia visited monthly, sharing stories of my mother's strength. Even Uncle Carl, drowning in shame, had found purpose in speaking at intervention programs about how enablers become accomplices. And your grandmother? I smiled. She's safe. We moved her to a better facility, one closer to me. Her dementia means she doesn't understand what happened, but she knows she's loved. That's enough. Do you ever regret going nuclear, exposing everything? No. The answer came immediately. I regret not seeing it sooner. I regret the years of enabling through silence, but exposing it, never. The conversation turned to my work. The employee advocacy program had become a model for other companies. We'd helped dozens of employees escape various forms of abuse, providing resources and support that went far beyond traditional HR. You've built something remarkable from something terrible, Janet observed. That's what humans do, I replied. We transform pain into purpose. My mother taught me that. After Janet left, I returned to regular work, but my mind wandered to the evening ahead. Madison was flying in for the Foundation's first gala. Eleanor would be there along with Patricia Chen and her wife Sarah. Even Mr. Blackstone's mother had promised to attend. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. Landed bringing someone I want you to meet. I smiled, curious. Madison had mentioned dating someone, another art student who understood complicated families. The fact she was ready to introduce them spoke volumes about her healing. That evening, the gala exceeded expectations. The hotel ballroom was packed with supporters, survivors, and allies. Madison's artwork lined the walls available for auction, with proceeds funding more scholarships. You clean up nice. Madison teased, approachable in her cocktail dress and genuine smile. Beside her stood a young woman with kind eyes and paint-stained fingers, definitely an artist. This is Luna, Madison said shyly. She's important. I hugged them both, welcoming Luna to our chosen family. Throughout the evening, I watched Madison navigate the space with confidence, no longer the terrified girl who'd escaped on a midnight bus, but a young woman claiming her place in the world. Eleanor gave the keynote, speaking about courage and transformation. She told our mother's story, the brilliant law student who'd sacrificed her dreams, but ensured her daughters could claim theirs. Catherine Morrison lost her battle. Eleanor said, but she won the war. Through Alvara and Madison, through this foundation, through every person here who refused to let abuse define them, she won. The auction was spirited. Madison's prayer circle painting, the one I'd insisted she sell, went for $20,000 to an anonymous bidder who requested it be donated to a women's shelter. That's perfect, Madison whispered. Let it help others escape. By the end of the evening, we'd raised enough to fund 20 more scholarships, but the money, while important, wasn't the true victory. It was the room full of people who'd transformed trauma into triumph. Patricia Chen pulled me aside near the end. Madison tells me you're not seeing anyone. My wife has a colleague. No setups. I laughed. I'm learning to be alone without being lonely. Dating can wait. Fair enough. But when you're ready, there are good people out there. People who understand that strength comes from surviving, not from never needing help. As the gala wound down, I found myself on the balcony looking out at the city lights. Madison joined me, Luna giving us space for a sister moment. We did it, she said softly. We actually did it. Did what? Survived, thrived, built something beautiful from something ugly. Mom's plan worked. We worked, I corrected. Mom gave us tools, but we did the building. Madison pulled out her phone, showing me her latest commission, a series for a financial literacy program aimed at young adults. The client had specifically requested her because of our story. I never thought I'd be grateful, she admitted. Not for what happened, but for who we became because of it. Is that wrong? No, that's human. We can hate what happened while appreciating who we are now. The evening ended with an unexpected visitor. A young woman, maybe 20, approached nervously as we were leaving. Are you Alvera Morrison? She asked. I nodded, instantly alert despite the peaceful setting. I'm Emma. I've been following your story. My mom, she does the same thing, uses my credit, my sister's. We didn't know it was abuse until we saw your case on the news. Madison and I exchanged glances, then invited Emma to sit. For the next hour, we listened, advised, and provided resources. By the time she left, she had a lawyer's number, a foundation emergency grant application, and most importantly, hope. This is why we went public, Madison said as we watched Emma leave with straightened shoulders. For all the Emmas who didn't know escape was possible. The next morning, Madison flew back to Portland, but not before we had breakfast at our old favorite diner, the one that had been a refuge during the worst days. The same waitress who'd served us during our crisis recognized us. You girls look good, she said, refilling our coffee. Healthy, happy. We are, Madison confirmed. Finally. After dropping Madison at the airport, I returned to my apartment. My sanctuary, my proof of independence. The Phoenix painting hung in the living room, a daily reminder of resurrection through determination. My phone rang Rebecca with updates on the ongoing civil suits. The last of the criminal cases pled out yesterday, she reported. Everyone who participated in the fraud ring is either in prison or on probation. It's officially over. Over. The word felt surreal even now. Thank you, I told her, for everything, for believing us when everyone said family doesn't sue family. Thank you for having the courage to fight. You've changed how we handle these cases. You've saved lives. That evening, I sat down to write something I'd been putting off for months. The letter was addressed to my father, though I'd never send it. Dr. Kim had suggested it as a therapeutic exercise. Dear Dad, I began, then stopped. What did you say to someone who'd been both protector and predator? How did you reconcile the man who'd taught you to ride a bike with the one who'd stolen your future? In the end, I wrote about forgiveness, not for him, but for the child I'd been, who'd loved him despite everything. I wrote about Mom, about the brilliant woman he'd diminished, about Madison, the artist he'd tried to cage, about the family he'd corrupted, and the one we'd built from its ashes. I kept 100% of my salary, I concluded, but more than that, I kept 100% of my life. The percentage you demanded was never about money. It was about control. You lost both. I burned the letter in my kitchen sink, watching years of pain transform into smoke and ash. It felt like the final cleansing, the last ritual needed to truly move forward. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. Made it home safe. Luna says you're the cool sister, working on a new piece, 2 women standing in sunshine. No shadows. Love you. I smiled, texting back, love you too, paint something beautiful. Outside my window, the city went about its business people living their lives facing their own battles, finding their own ways to survive and thrive. Somewhere another family was probably struggling with similar abuse. But now there were resources, precedents, and hope. The war was won. The peace was real. And life, real life, not just survival, stretched ahead like an open road. I poured a glass of wine, raised it to my mother's photo on the shelf, and spoke the words she'd never lived to hear. "We're free, Mom, both of us, just like you planned." 1 year later, I stood in the conference room where everything had changed, but this time, I was the one running the meeting. The employee advocacy program had grown beyond our single company. 7 other corporations had adopted our model, and I was training their HR teams. The key is early intervention, I explained to the assembled professionals. By the time someone's family is staging prayer circles at the office, it's already a crisis. We need to recognize the signs before then. My phone sat silent on the table, no threatening messages, no emergency calls. The only notification was from Madison, a photo of her latest gallery opening invitation. She was having her first solo show in Portland, themed After the Storm Portraits of Healing. During the lunch break, Sandra pulled me aside. "You know that anonymous bidder who bought Madison's prayer circle painting? They're here today." I glanced around the room, curious. "Who?" "Martha Blackstone. She said it reminds her daily that manipulation can hide behind any mask, even faith. She's donating another $50,000 to the foundation." That afternoon, as I wrapped up the training, one of the participants raised her hand. "Ms. Morrison, what about family members who genuinely want to reconcile? How do we advise employees on that?" The question that had haunted me for months. Several family members had reached out recently, cousins who'd been children during the worst of it, aunts who'd been victims themselves, even Aunt Martha's daughter who'd written a heartfelt letter about breaking the cycle with her own children. "Reconciliation is personal," I answered carefully. "We can't make that choice for anyone, but we can ensure they're making it from a position of strength, not obligation. Boundaries aren't walls. They're the framework that makes healthy relationships possible." After the session, I drove to the cemetery. It was Mom's birthday, and Madison and I had a tradition now. I found her grave, already decorated with fresh flowers. Eleanor had been there earlier. "Hi, Mom," I said, settling on the grass. "Madison's opening is next week. She painted you not sick, not broken, but the law student with dreams. She found an old photo Eleanor had. You're radiant in it." I updated her on everything: the foundation's growth, the legal reforms passing in multiple states, the lives changed by her careful planning. But mostly, I talked about ordinary things. My promotion to VP of Corporate Advocacy, Madison's girlfriend Luna moving in with her, the book deal I was considering. "I'm dating someone," I admitted quietly. "His name is James. He's a teacher, has his own complicated family story. He understands why I check my credit report monthly and keep emergency cash hidden. He doesn't try to fix me, just stands beside me while I fix myself." The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment, I could almost hear her voice, proud, encouraging, free. That evening, Madison called during her gallery setup. "I wish you could see this. The centerpiece is a triptych: past, present, future. The past panel shows us in shadow. The present shows us in battle. But the future," she paused, emotional, "the future shows us in light. Just light." "I'll be there Friday," I promised. "Wouldn't miss it." "Bring James," she said casually. "I want to meet the guy who makes you use emoji in your texts now." I laughed. She wasn't wrong. Healing had made space for lightness I'd never thought possible. Thursday night, Eleanor hosted a dinner for what she called the Survivors Club. Jennifer was there now, a forensic accountant specializing in financial abuse cases. Patricia brought her daughter, finally ready to share her own story. Even Uncle Carl attended, sober for 8 months and volunteering with a men's accountability group. "I got a letter from Marcus," Carl said quietly over dessert. "He wants me to put money on his commissary account." The table went silent. My father had been cut off from family financial support, a condition of many plea deals, but he still tried through proxies. I didn't respond, Carl continued, but it made me think about all the times I enabled him, all the times I put money in his hands knowing it would fuel destruction. You can't change the past, Jennifer said gently, only what you do next. What I do next is stay accountable, every day. We toasted with sparkling cider. Several of us were in recovery from various traumas that had led to unhealthy coping. The clarity sobriety brought was just another gift from the wreckage. Friday's flight to Portland was smooth. James beside me reading student papers while I reviewed foundation applications. The ease of it, traveling without fear, companionship without control, still felt miraculous sometimes. Madison met us at the airport, vibrating with nervous energy. The pre-sales are insane. Patricia thinks we'll sell out opening night. I can fund my entire MFA with this show. The gallery was packed when we arrived. Madison's art had evolved, still emotionally powerful, but now infused with hope. The prayer circle painting had inspired a series each, showing manipulation tactics used by abusers. But the final piece showed the tactics failing against an informed, supported victim. Your sister is extraordinary, James said, studying a piece depicting financial documents transforming into birds taking flight. She is... I agreed, watching Madison explain her work to rapt collectors. The triptych she described was breathtaking. The past panel was dark shapes, barely visible in shadow. The present showed chaos documents, testimony battles fought in stark relief. But the future was pure light. Two figures standing tall, no shadows to define them because they'd become the light themselves. I need that piece, a familiar voice said behind me. I turned to find Diane Walsh, not the imprisoned ex-girlfriend, but the journalist who told our story. I'm curating an exhibition on triumph over trauma. This would be the centerpiece. Madison overheard and approached. It's not for sale, she said firmly. That one goes to Alvera. It was always meant for her. Actually, I said, surprising myself, sell it. Let it inspire others. I have the original you here thriving. That's worth more than any painting. Madison hugged me tight, and I felt Mom's presence again, the woman who'd sacrificed her dreams to ensure ours could flourish. The exhibition was a complete success. Every piece sold, funding not just Madison's education, but also establishing an art therapy program for abuse survivors. As the evening wound down, we found ourselves on the gallery's rooftop deck. Portland's lights spread before us. Remember the bus station? Madison asked. When you put me on that midnight bus to escape? Vividly. I was terrified, not of leaving, but of leaving you behind to fight alone. We were never alone, I reminded her. Mom made sure of that. Eleanor, Rebecca, all the allies we didn't know we had, she set it all in motion. The long game, Madison smiled. She always was strategic. Luna appeared with champagne for a final toast. Even Eleanor had flown in for the opening, and she raised her glass with characteristic elegance. To Catherine Morrison, Eleanor began, who loved her daughters enough to plan their freedom. To Alvera, who had the courage to fight publicly. To Madison, who had the wisdom to document secretly. To all of us who refused to let abuse be our legacy. To the future, I added, where 100% of our lives belong to us. We drank. We laughed. We celebrated not just survival, but transformation. Below us, Portland hummed with life, people living their stories, facing their challenges, finding their own ways forward. My phone buzzed with a text. Another young woman reaching out through the foundation, desperate for help, escaping her family's financial abuse. Tomorrow, I'd connect her with resources. Tonight, though, I put the phone away. Ready to go? James asked, appearing at my side. I looked around at Madison, glowing with success at Eleanor, proud and protective at Jennifer, using her painful experience to help others at Uncle Carl, making daily amends. At the chosen family, built from the ashes of the one that had tried to consume us. Almost, I said. One more minute. I stepped to the edge of the rooftop, looking out at the vast possibilities of a life unencumbered by financial abuse, emotional manipulation, or family terrorism. Somewhere out there, other families were trapping their children in cycles of exploitation, but also out there were survivors' allies and resources that hadn't existed before we'd made our stand. The war was won. The peace was holding. And life, beautiful, complex, freely chosen life stretched ahead like a promise finally kept. Now I'm ready, I said, taking James's hand. As we left the gallery, Madison called out, "Hey, Alvera, thank you for everything, for saving me." "We saved each other," I called back. "That's what real family does." Walking into the Portland night surrounded by love that didn't demand percentages or payment, I thought of Mom one more time. Her plan had worked more perfectly than she could have imagined. We hadn't just escaped. We'd transformed escape into triumph, trauma, into purpose, survival, into art. And that turned out to be worth more than all the money our father had ever stolen. As we drove away from the gallery, Madison texted one final time, "Mom would be so proud." I smiled, knowing the truth in my bones. She already was. Dear reader, thank you for following Alvera and Madison's journey. If you or someone you know is experiencing family financial abuse, please know that help exists and escape is possible. If this story resonated with you, please consider sharing it with others who might need to hear that freedom is possible. Like and subscribe for more stories of triumph over adversity.